Chapter 1065. Remember in 1 second, 800 mail sign /say, net wonderful pop-up window free reading. Xiao Wanru blinked with a smile, and her red lips curved into a lovely smile. Imperial grandmother, you should be careful. It's easy to get sick at this time. My granddaughter-in-law was in excellent health, but she has fallen ill these days. Imperial grandmother, you should be more careful. Her complexion had always been good, and there was a touch of pink on her snow-white face. Right now, she was a bit haggard, but she still had a healthy complexion. This kind of complexion made the Empress Dowager feel very comfortable. How could an old person not like a younger generation with a rosy complexion and healthy complexion? Chu Liuchen, the Empress Dowager, had always been worried about her health. Now she married Xiao Wanru. If the princess was also sick and weak, who would be in charge of the whole mansion? On this point, the Empress Dowager was very satisfied with Xiao Wanru. Imperial grandmother, I went to the street just now and took a fancy to a shop. I'm going to sell it. In the future, if you like anything in the shop, I can ask someone to send it to you, Xiao Wanru said proudly, showing her white teeth with a smile. Shop? Seeing her so happy, Empress Dowager showed some interest. It's a tailor-made clothing store for women. The clothes and accessories inside are all very good. After my granddaughter-in-law buys this store, Imperial grandmother can choose what she wants. Xiao Wanru said with a smile. That's good. My clothes will depend on you in the future. Empress Dowager was coaxed and laughed. Okay, Imperial grandmother, I'll leave the clothes and materials to my granddaughter-in-law in the future. Xiao Wanru said with a smile. She was beautiful, and her smile made her look even more charming and beautiful. Why does the shop belong to Princess Yu? Could it be that you can't run it anymore? Nanny Wei asked curiously. It's not that the business can't continue. It's just that something happened. The shopkeeper had no choice but to give this shop to me. Otherwise, I'm afraid that even the shop will be taken over by others, Xiao Wanru said. Who's so overbearing? He's just doing business, yet he's causing so much trouble. The Empress Dowager's face darkened. Xiao Wanru's words meant that this shop had been forced into a corner. I heard that she abandoned the shopkeeper's ex-husband or something. Now, she's plotting with her current wife to steal the shopkeeper's money. The female shopkeeper doesn't have any background in the capital. If she doesn't sell her out, she might lose her life. The smile on Xiao Wanru's face faded, and she frowned slightly, feeling indignant for Nanny Dong. What on earth is going on? Tell me. When the Empress Dowager heard that it was not a simple sentence, she asked with her eyes wide open. Xiao Wanru had told the Empress Dowager about the grievances between Madame Dong and Wei Dehai in detail. The Empress Dowager wrung her hands repeatedly and said, "What's the use of such a man? I think so too, so I might as well be the boss of Madame Dong, lest she, a lonely woman, will lose her money and her life in the end," Xiao Wanru said. Indeed, we should help her. What kind of official is he? Ask someone to check if he has other things. Such a person is definitely not a good official, the Empress Dowager said angrily. Xiao Wanru didn't mention Wei Dehai's name when she said it just now, but only mentioned that he was an official. Imperial grandmother, you're right. After I finish the matter, I'll ask him which official of the Imperial court would do such a thing. Xiao Wanru nodded repeatedly. Nanny Wei had been standing beside the Empress Dowager. At this time, the smile on her face was a little stiff. She glanced at Xiao Wanru carefully, slowly lowered her head, took a few steps back, and stood respectfully behind the Empress Dowager, looking straight ahead. Such an official appointed by the Imperial court is indeed a good-for-nothing. He was actually an Imperial examiner in the past. Now, the Imperial examiners are testing on literary skills. His character is really bad. There are some people with good character who have never been successful. The Empress Dowager shook her head. Xiao Wanru's heart skipped a beat. It seemed that there was a hidden meaning in the Empress Dowager's words. Her long eyelashes fluttered quickly twice. She raised her watery eyes and followed the Empress Dowager's words and said, "Imperial grandmother, you're right. However, the Imperial court will look at literary talents first when selecting officials. Those who are lacking in character will inevitably be found out slowly. But if they are not good at literary talents, it will not be easy for them to stand out. The Empress Dowager nodded in agreement and then asked casually, "You are originally from Jiangzhou, right? Have you heard of Tanhua in the previous world?" Xiao Wanru shook her head and looked at the Empress Dowager in confusion. "Imperial Grandmother, during the Imperial examination in the previous world, I went to the Yuhui nunnery and didn't see him. I only heard that the top scorer was the third young master of the Deputy Prime Minister's mansion next door to our mansion. Marquis Xing's mansion and the Deputy Prime Minister's mansion were neighbors. Even if the masters did not spread the news between the two families, the servants would spread it." Xiao Wanru had heard more than once from the elderly nannies in old Madame's courtyard that they had seen Wen Shiqi when he was a child. They all said that this top scorer had been smart and intelligent since he was a child. At first glance, one could tell that he was extraordinary. The third young master of the Deputy Prime Minister's mansion is indeed good. He has a good character and is good in all aspects. He is worth considering. In addition to Bang Yen, who is married, the third young master of the Deputy Prime Minister's mansion and Tanhua are not married. I heard that they are also from Jiangzhou." The Empress Dowager turned to Nanny Wei and reached out to press her head. "What was his surname before?" "Empress Dowager, his surname is Qi. It is said that he grew up with Princess Chen and the two families are close." Nanny Wei reminded with a smile. "Look at my memory. It is said that his surname is Qi. It is said that his character and talent are not worse than that of the third young master one. He is also a sentimental person." The Empress Dowager nodded repeatedly. "Tell me what this person is like. It is said that he came from outside before, so it is not accurate." "His surname is Qi? He became Tanhua again. Is his name Qi Tianyu?" Xiao Wanru asked calmly. "Qi Tianyu. Yes, it is this person." The Empress Dowager said repeatedly and looked at Xiao Wanru with a smile. "How about this person?" "Well," Xiao Wanru said with embarrassment on her face. She lowered her head and twisted the handkerchief in her hand a few times. She was a little uneasy and helpless. "Imperial Grandmother, who told you that I know this person? Is there anything wrong?" The Empress Dowager asked kindly. Xiao Wanru's eyes turned red. "Imperial Grandmother, I don't know what others said about it. Our prince knew about it. He happened to be in Jiangzhou at that time. Chu Luchen also knew about it." The Empress Dowager was surprised. Looking at Xiao Wanru's expression, there was obviously something wrong, and it was not a small thing. She did not mention Qi Tianyu, which seemed to be avoiding suspicion. "Then I will ask Chen about it." The Empress Dowager comforted her. "It's nothing. I just thought of such a person. I heard that he is also one of the few talents in the capital city, so I asked him about it. He said that he came from Jiangzhou like you and seemed to know him." "Imperial Grandmother, I know him, but this person? I really can't tell him. It's better for our prince to tell him about it." Xiao Wanru said aggrievedly with red eyes. No matter how Qi Tianyu appeared in front of the Empress Dowager, it was not convenient for her to mention him. Chu Luchen was the most suitable person to tell her about it. The Empress Dowager wrote to him again. Her face looked sad, but her brain was spinning rapidly. She was thinking about who had deliberately exposed Qi Tianyu and what was the purpose of implicating her. Although the accident at that time was not caused by her, it was a little against women's precepts and women's ethics. As a woman, she seemed a little rude. She had not figured out the Empress Dowager's temper yet. She did not know if she would be angry when she heard such a thing. Okay, I'll ask China then," the Empress Dowager said. Xiao Wanru sniffed, turned her head sideways, wiped the corners of her eyes with a handkerchief, and then turned her head again with a gentle smile on her face. Her smile was clear and shallow, which made people feel particularly lovely. However, the haggard look in her eyes was obvious, which made people feel sorry for her. "If you are tired, go back and have a rest first," the Empress Dowager said gently. "I'm not tired. It's going to be Imperial Grandmother's birthday soon. What kind of gift does Imperial Grandmother like? This is the first time I give Imperial Grandmother a gift, and I'm afraid that Imperial Grandmother won't like the gift." Xiao Wanru had pushed away the sadness on her face and looked at the Empress Dowager eagerly, as if she wanted to please the Empress Dowager wholeheartedly. She had an outstanding appearance. At this time, her big eyes were full of the Empress Dowager, and her eyes were clear. In addition, she was young and looked a little cute, just like the little princesses in the palace. There was no impurity in her eyes, which made people feel sorry for her. In the past, Chen would give me some gifts that I like. Now you don't have to worry. Chen must have prepared them. The Empress Dowager said with a smile in a very good mood. It's the first time for me to celebrate Imperial grandmother's birthday, so I should do my best. Xiao Wenru said. Her words made the Empress Dowager laugh again. Your Highness, Princess Chen is filial to you. In the future, you can not only enjoy the happiness of a grandson, but also enjoy the happiness of a granddaughter-in-law. Nanny Wei said jokingly. The Empress Dowager laughed more and more happily. In fact, I don't have any special hobbies. I'll be happy with whatever you give me. Imperial grandmother, have you already made arrangements here? Xiao Wenru looked around and asked curiously. When she came in just now, the palace maids and eunuchs outside were carrying some things, mainly in the front hall. Princess Chen, the emperor wants to hold the banquet in the front hall today. The banquet can also be arranged there. Now it's almost ready. Basically, it was arranged recently. When Princess Chen came before, it had just started. Nanny Wei said with a smile. Imperial grandmother, I want to broaden my horizons. Can I? Xiao Wenru's eyes lit up, and she raised her eyes happily and said. It was not difficult. The Empress Dowager waved her hand with a smile and asked Nanny Wei to take Xiao Wenru there. Chapter 1066. The so-called front hall was actually the gate of the Palace of Benevolent Peace. After going up the high steps from the gate, they arrived at the main hall. The main hall was very spacious and beautifully decorated. The banquet tables were also distributed in an extremely orderly manner. The palace maids and eunuchs came and went in an orderly manner. Seeing Nanny Wei coming with Xiao Wenru, they bowed respectfully and didn't leave until they left. Xiao Wenru walked in, looked at the neat rows of tables and asked, Isn't the banquet just for women? Men and women are all here. The Empress Dowager's birthday is celebrated by the whole world. His Majesty's intention is that we don't have to celebrate separately. We can all celebrate here. Not only the concubines in the palace, but the emperor and the princes will also come. In addition, some princes and important ministers will also come. Many women will come. Nanny Wei introduced with a smile. Xiao Wenru nodded. As she had heard, it was a huge banquet, and what happened later would have the greatest impact. She walked forward and saw that there were also rows of tables on the steps in front of the main hall. It should be the place where the princes and princesses sat. As for the top, there was only one table, which was not big, but the 3 chairs around it were all made of gold inlaid wood, which was huge and wide, especially the one in the middle, which had the dragon pattern on its shoulder, which was even more noble. Nanny Wei, is this the emperor's dragon throne? Xiao Wenru gasped. It was the first time for her to see the emperor's dragon throne. She heard that even in the palace, there were not many specially made dragon throne by the emperor. It is indeed the emperor's dragon throne. The Empress Dowager specially made it for the emperor. On both sides are the seats for the Empress Dowager and the Empress. Nanny Wei nodded. Hearing her words, Xiao Wenru looked at the chairs on both sides and found that these 2 chairs were also different from other chairs. Although they were a little smaller and could not be compared with the dragon throne in the middle, there were also phoenix patterns on the shoulders, which were exquisite and gorgeous. It was indeed different from the atmosphere of the royal family. Nanny Wei, what kind of gift does the Empress Dowager like best? Is there any taboo? It is the first time for me to attend the Empress Dowager's birthday banquet. I'm afraid that I will offend the Empress Dowager's taboo. After exclaiming, Xiao Wenru got down to business. This was an important reason why she specially asked Nanny Wei to lead the way. When Xiao Wenru proposed to see the layout of the front hall, Nanny Wei had vaguely guessed it. Hearing Xiao Wenru's words, she immediately said with a smile, Princess Chen, you are too polite. Empress Dowager is actually a very good master and there is nothing special to avoid in daily life. Princess Chen, you only need to prepare a birthday gift according to your wishes. Xiao Wanru looked at Nanny Wei with a smile and said, there is no taboo. Do you have a favorite? Well, actually, I don't like it very much. I just like it to be unique and different from other things. Besides, Empress Dowager likes calligraphy and painting. Nanny Wei reminded implicitly. Do you like unique calligraphy and paintings? Xiao Wanru's eyes lit up and her long eyelashes flickered. She was a little tempted. Nanny Wei smiled and said nothing, but her meaning was very clear. Thank you, Nanny Wei. Xiao Wanru bowed sideways and said gratefully. Princess Chen, you are too polite. How can I accept your courtesy? Nanny Wei hurriedly moved aside to let Xiao Wanru bow to her. Xiao Wanru straightened her back and asked again, Nanny Wei, do you want to send the gift first or wait until Empress Dowager's birthday? Well, they are basically sent on the spot on the official birthday, Nanny Wei said. In fact, there were some who sent gifts first, but not many. Moreover, many who sent gifts first would still send a congratulatory gift when the time came. There were benefits for sending gifts first, and there were benefits for sending gifts on the spot. However, those who sent gifts first usually had a special relationship with Empress Dowager. However, there was no need to say this to Princess Chen in front of her. Thank you, Nanny Wei. Xiao Wanru bowed politely again, and Nanny Wei also avoided with a smile. The two of them walked for a while and chatted for a while before returning to the Empress Dowager's place. The Empress Dowager was tired and went to rest. She also told Xiao Wanru to help herself when she came over. If she was tired, she could go back. If she was not tired, she could stroll in the garden and enjoy the scenery. There was no need to rush back. She was the only master in Prince Chen's mansion, and it was too quiet. Xiao Wanru thanked the Empress Dowager for her kindness and left the palace of benevolent peace. Nanny Wei walked her to the gate and watched her leave. She stopped smiling and frowned tightly. Did Princess Chen say something about her nephew? Although it was a little different from what her nephew said, the more she listened to it, the more she felt that it was true. Could it be that this matter really had something to do with Princess Chen? If it was true, she had to persuade her nephew not to clash with Princess Chen. Princess Chen might be nothing, but Prince Chen was the Empress Dowager's beloved grandson. Xiao Wanru casually returned to the back door of Prince Chen's mansion with Yujia. Chu Luchen was not in the mansion, so it was inconvenient for her to stay in the palace. Although there were no outsiders in the palace, the possibility of bumping into several princes was still very high. Without Chu Luchen, she should be more careful. On the way back, she didn't meet Di Jiaoyi, but unexpectedly met Madame O, the female painter. The two of them almost bumped into each other at the corner. Madame O took 2 steps back, and the paintings in her hands fell to the ground. Seeing Xiao Wanru opposite her, she was stunned for a moment and then hurriedly saluted, "Greetings, Princess Chen." The former beauty had already become the princess of Prince Chen's mansion. "Madame O, you are too polite." Xiao Wanru smiled softly and asked Yujie to help Madame O pick up the paintings one by one. "Madame O, where are you going to send so many paintings?" Xiao Wanru looked curiously at the painting on a scattered scroll and asked curiously. It was a painting of a mother and a son playing. The young child was round and cute, and the young madam looked dignified and gentle. While embroidering the child's clothes, she smiled and said nothing. On the birthday of the Empress Dowager, she asked me to draw more paintings of a mother and a son getting along well. I showed them to the supervisor of the Ministry of Internal Affairs just now, but he was not satisfied with them. Madame O took the paintings handed over by Yujie and said helplessly, "Is it the Emperor's order?" Xiao Wanru's eyes flickered. The Emperor asked the Ministry of Internal Affairs to buy them. I heard that they would choose the best ones to present to the Empress Dowager, but now they are all rejected, saying that the paintings are not good enough. I heard that they have never been used before. Madame O sighed in distress and said, "At this time, it was best to choose the authentic works that were out of print. How could they let the painters draw in this way? Although their paintings were good, they couldn't be compared with those famous painters." "Just this year?" Xiao Wanru raised her eyebrows and asked. "Yes, just this year. I was going to go out of the palace, but now I stay here to draw these kinds of paintings," Madame O said. It had been a while since the end of the consort selection. She should have left the palace long ago, but now she was delayed by this matter. Do the others also draw these kinds of paintings? Xiao Wanru looked at Madame O with her watery eyes and asked with a smile. They are also of this kind. They want to show the harmonious relationship between a mother and a son, and they should be young. Just now, I said that there are too few children to draw. There should be 3, Madame O said. The 3 of them included the late emperor. The matters of the late emperor were blurred in the past, blurring his existence, as if he was just an ordinary king. Some of the matters of the late emperor and the relationship between the king and his subjects also slowly faded from the public sight. This blurring was very slow, but it was very effective. Now basically, if it was not clearly related to the late emperor, few people would mention the late emperor. At this time, it was really strange that the Empress Dowager deliberately asked the painters to draw 3 children. Under the name of Empress Dowager, her biological sons were the late emperor and the current emperor. Prince Cheng happened to have 3 children, 3 princes. After saying goodbye to Madame O, Xiao Wanru had been thinking about this problem. She always felt that it was too strange and unreasonable. If the emperor wanted to send a painting to the Empress Dowager's birthday, it should at least be an authentic one, instead of asking a painter to draw a painting casually. Even if Madame O and other painters were excellent, it was still not appropriate. They were not masters of the present age, nor were they of noble status. Why should they be sent to the Empress Dowager? And it was the emperor's order. In addition, the matter about the late emperor was too strange. These things slowly flowed in her mind, as if to express something, but she couldn't grasp the point at the moment. After returning to Prince Chen's mansion and sitting down, she thought about it carefully, and her expression became more and more strange. Could it be that it was not the emperor's order? If it was not the emperor's order, whose order was it? Originally, she entered the palace today to report to the Empress Dowager first. On the surface, Wei Dahai seemed to be a heartless man who coveted his ex-wife's money. However, it involved Mo Qiui, who behaved strangely and mysteriously, and then Chu Qing, which made Xiao Wanru vigilant. That was why she entered the palace to meet the Empress Dowager today. Nanny Wei, who was standing behind the Empress Dowager, behaved a little strange. Wei Dahai's surname was Wei, and so was Nanny Wei's. Was there any connection between them? When she mentioned Wei Dahai just now, although she didn't mention his name, Nanny Wei's behavior seemed to be a little embarrassed, as if she knew something. This abnormality disappeared quickly. When Nanny Wei led her to the front hall, Nanny Wei had already returned to normal. No matter how carefully she checked, she didn't find anything. Was it because Nanny Wei was too shrewd, or did she really misunderstand? In addition, the matter about Madame O was also strange. The Department of Internal Affairs? It seemed that she had to ask her maternal grandma who was in charge of the Department of Internal Affairs. This time, the Empress Dowager's birthday was in charge of the Department of Internal Affairs. When the accident happened in the last life, no one in charge of the Department of Internal Affairs was convicted. It seemed that no one made mistakes, but in the end, they forced Prince Zhou and the Empress to rebel. An old maid walked into the yard and reported respectfully in the corridor, "Your Highness, a madam wants to see you. She said that she has something to do with Marquis Xing. You have met her before." Chapter 1067. Who? Xiao Wanru didn't understand, waved her hand and asked again. Yu Jia lifted the curtain and went out. The old maid lowered her head and didn't dare to look at Xiao Wanru behind the curtain and said in a low voice, "It said that she is an old maid who has a relationship with Marquis Xing." In fact, the old maid didn't want to report it. At first glance, she could tell that this madam didn't have a powerful background. Otherwise, she would report it as a madam instead of an old maid. There were many old maids, including those whom she met when she was young and had no relationship with. However, since it was said that she was an old maid from Marquis Xing's mansion, the old maid didn't dare to offend her and could only come in to report it. "Your Highness, there are no old maids in Marquis Xing's mansion. When I was in Marquis Xing's mansion before, I didn't see any madam come to visit you." Yu Jia turned back, lowered the curtain, and went inside to report. In fact, she had only been in Marquis Xing's mansion for a few days. Not to mention, madam, she didn't even see many misses from other mansions. She only saw a few in the mansion who were scheming against each other. Yujie really couldn't think of any madam who was an old maid of her master in Marquis Xing's mansion. Your Highness, is it possible that she deliberately blackmailed me? Chu Lu suddenly thought of something and asked. She couldn't think of any madam who was familiar with her princess. Those who could be called old maids must be acquaintances. The princess didn't even meet outsiders in Marquis Xing's mansion, so how could there be a madam? It was impossible to say that it was Madame Jiang. The madam of Marquis Xing. Madame Jiang couldn't come out to meet others at the moment. It was even more impossible for old madam to come. First, grandma wouldn't report a familiar madam. As for other people, the two maids couldn't think of any. Xiao Wenru thought for a moment and suddenly smiled. There is indeed one. Which one? Your Highness, we have been following you. Why don't we know about it? Chu Lu and Yu Jie looked at each other. That day, when I met Marquis Xing outside. Xiao Wenru reminded them with a deep look in her eyes. No way. Why did such a woman come to see you? Chu Lu said in disbelief. She was Marquis Xing's mistress, who was obviously not a good person. Later, they heard the news and found it was true. Not only was she his mistress, but she had been raising him for more than 10 years. She even had a daughter now. Who in a noble family would look up to such a mistress? Princess, Marquis Xing has gone too far. He actually let this woman come to our mansion. Does he want you to recognize her first and then propose to let her marry into our mansion? Yujie was so angry that her face turned pale. It's impossible. Old madam has to give the order to enter Marquis Xing's mansion. Chu Lu shook her head and denied. Marquis Xing had his own elders, and he was also the elder of the princess. How could he let a junior help his mistress to enter the mansion? Why is it impossible? Old madam is not in charge of affairs now. It is first grandma who is in charge of affairs in the mansion, and first grandma is her daughter-in-law. No matter how thick-skinned Marquis Xing is, he will be too embarrassed to ask his daughter-in-law to propose such a thing. Now princess is the most distinguished person in Marquis Xing's mansion. As long as princess shows up, it will not be a problem for Marquis Xing's concubine. Not only will Marquis Xing's concubine be recognized, but he will also have a daughter. Yu Jie said with a sneer. Xiao Wenru fell silent for a moment. This woman came in a very strange way. She had only met her once. As an ordinary mistress, she was eager to hide when she saw people in the mansion. However, she actually had the courage to come to her mansion just because she was a madam of an old acquaintance. She was sure that she would meet her and was willing to meet her. Send her away and tell her that I don't know her, Xiao Wenru said. No matter where this woman came from, she didn't want to pay attention to her. She just wanted to see what they would do next. Princess, I'll go and have a look. Yu Jie took the initiative to say softly. She wanted to see that shameless woman. Xiao Wenru nodded. Yu Jie lifted the curtain and went out of the mansion with the old maid who came to report the news. When she arrived at the gate, she saw a lonely carriage in front of the gate. In front of the small carriage stood a 13 or 14-year-old servant girl. She combed her hair into a bun and looked quite delicate. When she saw Yu Jie coming, she hurriedly bowed to her. Who is your madam? Our princess doesn't know any madam. Yu Jie raised her head and looked at the carriage with a rather arrogant look. The curtain of the carriage was lifted, and there was a 12 or 13-year-old servant girl in it. The girl called En Yang appeared behind the lifted curtain. When she saw Yu Jie, she smiled before saying anything. She got out of the carriage with the help of the little servant girl, turned sideways, and bowed to Yu Jie. Miss, we met last time. At that time, Princess Chen and Marquis Xing were both there. Do you still remember me? She was dressed in a light-colored long dress, which made her look very elegant, and her delicate appearance became more outstanding. She was a woman who was very good at dressing up. That day, Marquis Xing was with Xiao Jing, so Yu Jie didn't dare to look at her too much. At this time, she looked her up and down carefully. Who are you? Our princess doesn't know you. After looking at her, Yu Jie still looked serious and said unhappily, You'd better go back. If you want to see Marquis Xing, go to Marquis Xing's mansion. Miss Yujie, I'm Anyang, who was brought here by the Marquis last time. Anyang said softly with tears in her eyes, looking extremely pitiful. Didn't the princess greet me in the private room before? So what do you want to do? Yujie was shocked. Anyang even knew her name. As expected, she came prepared. She immediately looked serious. I don't want to do anything. I just want to see Princess Chin. Anyang wiped the corners of her eyes with a handkerchief and said with great grievance, after meeting Princess Chin before, I thought of something. It should be related to Princess Chin, so I specially came here this time. Something about our princess? Yujie looked at Anyang up and down again and said unhappily, what does our princess want you to come here for? With Xiao Wanru's identity, how could she have anything to do with such a woman? It's true. It's about the princess's father. Miss Yujie, please go in and report it. Anyang said softly and bowed sideways again, looking very respectful to Yujie. The princess's father was the former heir of Duke Xing. Yujie couldn't decide such a thing for the time being. The princess had been looking for the truth of that year, and several of her confidants knew it. However, it was too difficult to find out what happened in that year, and the former heir of Duke Xing died in a place like the border. Now there was a clue? However, Yujie was dubious that the clue appeared in the hands of this woman. Miss Yujie, it's really important. When I met Princess Chin before, I didn't think of it. Later, I remembered such an important thing. Miss Yujie. Seeing Yujie's hesitation, Anyang knew that there was a chance, so she said in an even louder voice. She looked very sincere. There's no need. Our princess said that she knows everything about the princess's father and mother. There's no need for this madam to tell you anything. If this madam really thinks that there's something wrong, you can go out and turn left to the Ministry of Justice. You can go to the hall of the Ministry of Justice to make it clear. Chu Li came out of the door of Prince Chen's mansion. She left later than Yujie. It was Xiao Wanru who specially asked her to come here. What she said now was also Xiao Wanru's special instruction. I really have something to report to the princess. Seeing Chu Li come out expressionlessly, Anyang knew that it was not good, so she hurriedly said, Madam, our princess really doesn't know you, and she doesn't want to know about the matter about the former heir of Duke Xing that you deliberately made up. If you continue to pester her, don't blame the guards in our mansion for not recognizing you. They will directly arrest you, throw you into prison, and charge you with disturbing the prince's mansion. After receiving Xiao Wanru's order, Chu Li's attitude was very tough. A few guards came out of the door and walked over with unkind eyes. Although the long swords hanging at their waists were still sheathed, they gave off a murderous look. These guards at the door were specially sent by the emperor. When Chu Li went out just now, she told them that someone deliberately came to make trouble, so she asked the chief of the guards to send a few guards out. Anyang's face turned pale in panic. Seeing Chu Li's cold eyes and the guards with a bit of murderous look, she didn't dare to say anything and could only help the servant girl get into the carriage. The carriage made a turn and went out obediently. Chu Li, did the princess ask you to come here? Yujie looked at the carriage, which almost seemed to have escaped, and then at the guards who walked back again and asked in a low voice. Let's go back first. Chu Li nodded. The two of them entered the prince's mansion together and went to the backyard. Your Highness, she said that she knew something about your father. She said that she didn't remember it when she saw you at that time, but now she suddenly remembered it, so she made a special trip here. As soon as Yujie entered the door, she reported to Xiao Wanru. Chu Li went there late just now, so she didn't hear this. At this time, she was stunned for a moment. It turned out to be such an important thing, so she looked at Xiao Wanru subconsciously. With the princess's character, she would definitely investigate this kind of thing. It turns out to be such a reason. Xiao Wanru smiled coldly. Just now, she had guessed that this woman must have a very justifiable reason for her to have to see her. Now it seemed that it was true. Could it be true, Your Highness? Yujie said worriedly. The matter between Infanta Qinghua and the former heir of Duke Xing's mansion was what the princess was most concerned about. If it was true, she couldn't miss it. Do you think it's true? Xiao Wanru raised her cold eyes and asked. I don't know. I think it may be true, but it may also be false. Yujie hesitated. She really couldn't tell whether it was true or not. Why do you say so? Xiao Wanru asked with some interest. This woman is Marquis Xing's mistress. According to her identity, it seems that she may know something. But even if she knows something, it is impossible for her to suddenly come to see you, who she has only met once, unless something unexpected has happened to her. So I think it may be true, but it may also be false. It's hard to say. Yujia thought for a while and said bluntly. End of this chapter. Chapter 1068. Whether it's true or not, someone can't sit still anymore. Let's wait. Xiao Wanru said indifferently. This girl called Nyang was really an accident that she had not expected. What was Xiao Jing up to? What did he want to do? Your Highness, this woman is very bold. When I deliberately drove her away, she didn't panic. Instead, she said something that made me hesitate. She doesn't look like an ordinary mistress, Yujia said uneasily. She didn't look like a concubine. Although her dress looked a little pompous and her behavior was not like that of a good family, she was very courageous. In front of her, the personal palace made of Prince Qin, she could not be anxious and impatient. Such behavior was not simple. She can hide under the nose of the Jiang family for so long and stand up at this time. Not only does she judge the situation, but she also grasps the timing very well. As for what she said, if it's true, Xiao Jing has also been defeated by her. If it's not true, she must have colluded with him. Xiao Wanru said with coldness in her eyes. She was more inclined to the second possibility. Xiao Jing hid very well and was cruel and merciless. If something really happened to Yang, she wouldn't have survived until now and given birth to a daughter for him. There seemed to be something fishy about the daughter. If she grasped it correctly at this time, Aunt, please help me. This is true. I have no choice but to do this. Wei Dahai knelt in front of Nanny Wei and put his hands on her knees. The tall man cried like a child in front of Nanny Wei and said with grievance, Aunt, I really have no choice. They were in a simple courtyard. Although it was not big, it was not cheap because it was located in the center. This was Nanny Wei's courtyard outside the palace, which was given by the Empress Dowager. The Empress Dowager intended to send Nanny Wei out of the palace for a good rest when the time was right, so this courtyard had been prepared early. Nanny Wei was old. Although she had to serve the Empress Dowager a lot in the Imperial Palace, there were times when the Empress Dowager let her out of the Imperial Palace. The Empress Dowager was very kind to her and lived in the courtyard outside the Imperial Palace for 10 days a month. Since she recognized Wei Dahai would come to see her from time to time when she went out of the palace. Since they recognized each other, Wei Dahai had been very close to her and always said that he would take care of Nanny Wei when she went out of the palace. Nanny Wei really cared about her nephew. But at this moment, she couldn't agree. She reached out to hold Wei Dahai's hand and sighed, Dahai, don't even think about this shop. Princess Qin has taken a fancy to it, and even the Empress Dowager knows about it. She even said that you are an ungrateful person and said that she will investigate who has such a bad character. She wanted to tell the Empress Dowager early that Nanny Wei recognized her nephew, but Wei Dahai stopped her and said that there was no need to rush to find out the truth. Nanny Wei was still serving the Empress Dowager. If he was promoted in the previous dynasty, people would inevitably mistakenly think that he followed Nanny Wei's path. This was not good for Nanny Wei or for him. He said sternly that it was his own business whether he was promoted or not, and it had nothing to do with Nanny Wei. He didn't want to use Nanny Wei's power. He just wanted to recognize this aunt and said that his father ordered him to do so. When he found Nanny Wei, he would treat her like his biological parents and take care of her for the rest of her life. These words moved Nanny Wei and she repeatedly said yes. She felt that this nephew had an excellent character and was filial. In front of the Empress Dowager, Nanny Wei only mentioned a little that she recognized her nephew, but she didn't mention anything else. Nanny Wei didn't expect that this nephew, who was willing to keep a low profile, offended Princess Qin this time. Nanny Wei was really helpless. Nanny Wei had heard from Wei Dahai about the shop of butterfly clothing shop before. He said that the shopkeeper used to have a relationship with him and gave birth to a daughter for him. He wanted to take the shopkeeper back and give the shop to his daughter, and he would not charge a penny. When Wei Dahai said these words, it was reasonable. Nanny Wei nodded repeatedly and told him that he couldn't look down on others just because they gave birth to a daughter. If he took her into the mansion, he should also treat her well. As for his niece-in-law, he also needed to explain it clearly. His niece-in-law had always been a reasonable person and was very filial in front of Nanny Wei. Wei Dahai said that things were almost done, and he just needed to wait a little longer. He didn't expect that Princess Chen would say such words today. Nanny Wei had a headache. Although the Empress Dowager thought highly of her, Princess Chen was different from others. She was Prince Chen's legal wife. Everyone could see the Empress Dowager's love for Prince Chen. Even the Empress in the palace didn't dare to offend Prince Chen easily, not to mention that she was just a servant who served others. Gugu Mingyang and I love each other. At that time, she had no choice but to leave me. If she is forced to leave me again this time, how can I face her? She trusts me so much and wholeheartedly waits for me to marry into the Wei Fu. Our Fu has long prepared a courtyard and everything is ready. We even revealed this matter to some people, but now Chen Wangfei has interfered. Gugus, what should we do? Wei Dahai cried like a child with a sad face. A man's knees were made of gold. How could he kneel just because he wanted to? As for crying, every time Wei Dahai came over, he was always smiling. He had never cried in front of her. Aunt, I beg you this time. For Madame Ming and Xiao, I beg you this time. Please help me. Looking at Nanny Wei's face, Wei Dahai knew that he had a chance and cried even more sadly. He begged Nanny Wei for his wife and daughter, which made Nanny Wei increasingly feel that he was a man of affection. Hearing him being so sad, her eyes couldn't help turning red. This Ming Yang and her nephew could be said to be reconciled. She had not married for so many years and brought up a daughter with her, all for the sake of her nephew. Obviously, she was also affectionate and righteous. Such two people who were so in love with each other were forced by Princess Chen to separate. Such a grown man was forced to cry in front of her like this. She inexplicably felt a little annoyed with Xiao Wanru in her heart. Princess Chen seemed to be a good person. Why did she do such a thing and deliberately made a scene in front of the Empress Dowager? Was it because of her? She pulled Wei Dahai up hard and sighed helplessly. Don't cry. Let's think of a way. Thank you, Aunt. Thank you, Aunt. Wei Dahai was overjoyed. He forced himself to kneel down and kowtow to Nanny Wei 3 times. The kowtows on the ground made a thudding sound. He kowtowed 3 times. Get up quickly. Aren't you afraid of a headache? Nanny Wei pulled him hard. Wei Dahai didn't refuse this time. He stood up with Nanny Wei's hand, took the handkerchief handed by Nanny Wei, wiped his eyes casually, and looked at Nanny Wei eagerly. Nanny Wei sighed again, pointed to the chair, and said, Sit down and talk. Thank you, Aunt. Wei Dahai sat down and looked at Nanny Wei expectantly with his bright eyes. He was not small and not young, but his expression made Nanny Wei's heart soften for no reason. He was her only relative, her nephew, and the only child of her family. Even for this, she couldn't bear to separate them. It was really not easy for them to stay together for so many years. Today, Princess Chen said to the Empress Dowager that you are interested in other people's shops, so you propose to marry the shopkeeper. She said that you are greedy, fickle, and ungrateful. Tell me, is it true? Are you interested in other people's shops, or do you two really love each other? Nanny Wei asked with a serious face. Since she wanted to intervene, she must find out the truth, so that she could stand firm. Even if she complained to the Empress Dowager, she wouldn't feel guilty. Auntie, how could you believe such words? It was clearly Princess Chen who had her eyes on that shop and wanted to take it by force. She deliberately ruined the relationship between Yang Ming and Yang Ming. She might even say that Yang Ming was not a virtuous woman. Auntie, Yang Ming is really a good woman. If it wasn't for a freak combination of factors, we wouldn't have been separated for so long. She raised her child alone. Yang Ming's heart aches for her. Wei Dahai couldn't help crying when he said this. Seeing that he felt sorry for Dong Mingyang to the bone, Nanny Wei's expression softened a little, and she said, What a sin! What a sin! And, if you don't believe me, I'll ask Dong Ming's mother to come over in a few days and let her explain this matter to you. Is it Princess Chen who has taken a fancy to her shop or me who has taken a fancy to her shop? Wei Dehai said angrily. He stood up and seemed to go out to find Dong Mingyang to explain what had happened that year. Seeing him like this, how could Nanny Wei not believe him? She reached out to pull his sleeve and let him sit down again. How can I not believe you? You are my nephew. But the matter at hand is a little troublesome. The Empress Dowager also knows about it. Aunt, Princess Chin is really abominable. She also bullies orphans and widows. Madame Ming is such a poor woman. It's very difficult for her to live with a girl. She finally gained a foothold in the capital city, but was forced to this extent by Princess Chin. What if she can't bear the blow and can't think it through? Wei Dehai said anxiously, and a trace of cruelty flashed in his eyes. If Dong Mingyang really didn't know how to appreciate kindness, she couldn't blame him for being cruel. He was determined to get the shop of Butterfly Clothing Shop. What he had thought was a sure thing changed because of the appearance of Princess Chen. Fortunately, he had reported it to Nanny Wei before. So what if Princess Chen was Princess Chen? She was just a woman who married a sick prince. Even if she had the background of great elder princess, how could she compare with the Empress Dowager? Chapter 1069. No, maybe there will be a turn for the better. Nanny Wei shook her head and said, you should also persuade Dong Ming's mother to bear with it. Aunt, I'm afraid that Prince Chen's mansion will push her too hard these days. Aunt, please save Ming's mother. Wei Dehai begged again. Wait a minute and let me think about it. Nanny Wei had a headache because of his begging and said hurriedly. Her mind was in a mess now and she didn't know how to deal with this matter at the moment. Princess Chen looked young, but she was a person with ideas. In addition, Prince Chen was behind her. This prince had broken the arm of Ruaping Great Elder Princess's grandson before, so Ruaping Great Elder Princess's mansion didn't dare to have any opinions. He didn't even give face to Great Elder Princess. Would he give face to her? Aunt, you are Empress Dowager's personal nanny and entered the palace with Empress Dowager. You have accompanied Empress Dowager for so many years and your relationship with Empress Dowager is incomparable to that of Princess Chen. Empress Dowager values you the most. Empress Dowager has many grandchildren and there will be more granddaughters-in-law in the future. I heard that Princess Chen is not Empress Dowager's favorite person. Wei Dehai saw her hesitation and reminded her. Her words made Nanny Wei feel comfortable. Her relationship with the Empress Dowager was indeed different. They had gone through many hardships in the palace to get to the present stage. The Empress Dowager also thought highly of her. Nanny Wei could also speak in front of the Empress Dowager in the past. Aunt, you don't need to do anything. You just need to say in front of Empress Dowager that Princess Chen takes advantage of her power to bully others, rob others' shops, and ruin their marriage. Empress Dowager is a sensible person and has always been kind. She will certainly not see Ming's mother fall into such a miserable situation. Wei Dehai added fuel to the fire. It's not easy for me to say it. Nanny Wei frowned and said, Aunt, don't worry. I won't ask you to say it. You just need to say a few words on the side. Someone here will say it. Wei Dehai whispered. You have someone in the palace? Nanny Wei's face changed greatly. If someone were to find out that he had planted spies in the palace, it would implicate the entire clan. Auntie, don't worry, it's not an important person. When we first met, I was afraid that Auntie would not have a good time in the palace, so I specially bribed a little palace maid to help me look after you. I was afraid that if something happened to you, I would not know until the end, Wei Dehai explained. Nanny Wei breathed a sigh of relief and looked at Wei Dehai more gently. This nephew of hers was indeed filial. Nanny Wei thought that Nanny Wei was just a little palace maid. There's no need to be like this in the future. I'm doing very well in the palace, and the Empress Dowager is also very good to me. And even if you say so, I'm still worried. You're so old. After this matter, please ask the Empress Dowager to let you out of the palace. Although I'm not capable, I can still take care of you for the rest of your life. Wei Dehai took the opportunity to express his love. Wei Dahai knew that it was impossible for Nanny Wei to leave the Imperial Palace right away. Nanny Wei was very healthy. Even if she wanted to leave, the Empress Dowager would keep her. But he had to say something nice. Anyway, it was free. No matter how nice it sounded, it was just a casual talk. It was impossible for him to take it seriously. Seeing that he was thinking for her wholeheartedly, Nanny Wei was very moved and believed what Wei Dahai said more and more. He was really a person who valued friendship. As Princess Chen said, Princess Chen must have lied to deliberately discredit her nephew. She used to think that Princess Chen was a good person, but she didn't expect that she was so scheming. If Wei Dahai wasn't her nephew, Princess Chen would have harmed the whole family this time. "Aunt, I'll let this little palace maid talk to others herself. Just let the Empress Dowager hear it. At that time, help Lady Ming to say a few more words. Aunt, the lives of Lady Ming and Xiao are entrusted to you." Wei Dahai stood up and was about to kneel down and kowtow to Nanny Wei. Nanny Wei grabbed him and said repeatedly, "Oh, I know. Don't kneel down. Think about it. Tell me the people who will help. I'll arrange it. We can't really let Princess Chen force them to death." This was a good thing. Even if it was other people's business, she would help them if she knew it, not to mention that he was her nephew. Nanny Wei had made up her mind to help Wei Dahai. She was thinking of Wei's wholeheartedly. Wei Dahai told some details to Nanny Wei and then left. He got on the carriage outside the courtyard. When he sat in the carriage, his kind face immediately darkened, showing a sense of coldness. He didn't expect that Princess Chen would intervene in this matter. He originally wanted to report to the Empress Dowager before Princess Chen did. He didn't expect that after Princess Chen came back from outside, she went directly to the palace to see the Empress Dowager and talked about this matter. The shop of Butterfly Clothing Shop was extremely profitable. He just casually flipped through the account book before and found that this shop made more money than the shops in his hands. He was very short of money now. This shop's profit was so good that he was very jealous. After going back, he even discussed how to use the money. How could he watch such a large sum of money go away? He was determined to get this shop. The carriage took a few turns and returned to the Wei mansion. When the doorman saw that his master had returned, he hurried forward with a lantern and led the way in front of him. Wei Dahai went to the inner courtyard with his hands behind his back. The main courtyard, the largest in the inner courtyard, was brightly lit. His wife, Ouyang, was still sitting under the lamp waiting for him. Seeing him come in, she waved her hand, and the servant girls and old maids on both sides left silently. "How's it going?" Ouyang asked. The thin Ouyang was not good-looking. It could even be said that she was not as good-looking as ordinary people. Under the light, she looked indescribably gloomy. Her cheeks were drooping, her eyes were protruding, and her lips were particularly fat. If it weren't for her good complexion, she couldn't even be compared with an old maid in an ordinary courtyard. "Master, how's it going?" Ouyang sat in the chair and didn't get up. She said with a displeased look, "Why did you go for so long? Is it so difficult?" "It's a little difficult. Princess Chen has already entered the palace and talked to the Empress Dowager about it." Wei Dahai frowned so hard that he could almost catch a fly. "What does Princess Chen mean? Isn't she stretching her hand too far?" Ouyang snorted coldly and her face was gloomy. "She married a sick person. She doesn't know when he will die. What's the point of fishing for money? She can't even keep her life. What's the point of having so much money?" Ouyang snorted coldly. Wei Dahai sat down and picked up the teapot on the table to pour himself a cup of tea. He drank about half of it before putting it down. "My aunt said that this matter should be done according to us. This chapter is not finished. Please turn the page. It's really troublesome to do what we discussed before. Originally, it was just Dong Mingyang's matter. It was very easy to deal with, but now there's Princess Chen. What were you doing earlier? If you had gotten rid of that woman earlier, nothing would have happened. If you had listened to me, this wouldn't have happened. You just can't bear to let your daughter be wronged. Do you not have your own daughter or something? Why are you so concerned about the daughter of another concubine?" Ouyang said coldly and slammed her hand on the table. She had proposed to catch Dong Xiu'er and threatened Dong Mingyang to hand over the shop. As long as it was done properly, no one would care about it. As long as there was no victim, no one would investigate at all. They could just say that Dong Mingyang had resigned. There wouldn't be so much trouble and the matter would become more and more serious. If Dong Xiu'er and Dong Mingyang were sacrificed, nothing would happen. Xiu'er is my flesh and blood. Wei Dehai said. Your flesh and blood? I didn't give birth to your flesh and blood. Why are you regretting it now? Regretting marrying me back then? Now you want to be together with this Dong Ming's mother. Ouyang said fiercely, her voice becoming louder. How could it be? Don't you know how I treat you? I treat you wholeheartedly. Why are you so narrow-minded? There's really nothing between me and Dong Mingyang. We broke up at that time and haven't contacted each other for so many years. That day, it wasn't your idea, so I won't contact her again. When she enters the mansion, you have the final say. Even if you kill her, I won't say anything. Wei Dehai lowered his voice and coaxed. That sounds nice. Let's see how you are going to deal with such a thing. Ouyang refused to stop and said angrily. Wei Dehai reached out and held Ouyang in his arms and said gently, I'll handle it. Don't worry. It'll be fine. You'll be in charge of the shop in the future. I'm most relieved when you handle it. Seeing that he had been very docile, Ouyang's face became a little better. She thought for a while and said, If Princess Qin insists on fighting with us, what should we do? Dong Mingyang might have begged her. Are we really going to waste our time like this? Prince Qin is going back to the capital. Wei Dehai had thought it through along the way, so he said without hesitation, If you beg her, let Dong Mingyang die. These words caused Ouyang to smile. She pulled on his sleeve and tenderly said, Husband, if we are of one heart and one mind, then we can fight for a better future for our children. When that time comes, you won't just be a small official. At the very least, you will be a first-rank official. That will be our good days. She was not good-looking and was old, but she pretended to be so gentle. Her affectionate eyes also showed a little shyness. Wei Dehai hurriedly moved his eyes away, patted her on the back, and then stood up. I'll go to the study to think about it. I'm afraid that Princess Qin will have a follow-up. It's so late and you still want to go? Why don't you rest first? Ouyang's face darkened again. She shook her sleeves and stood up. But although Wei Dehai wanted to leave, he didn't dare to really leave, for fear of making trouble again. Ouyang was not Dong Mingyang, who was not easy to deal with. Everything he had now depended on her. He really didn't dare to disobey her. Even if he didn't like her, he had to endure it. End of this chapter. Chapter 1070. Empress Dowager, the weather is good today and the flowers in this garden are in full bloom. A walk can make you feel better. Prince Qin is about to return to the capital city. Don't worry. Prince Qin has always cared about you. Knowing that your birthday is coming, he will go as fast as he can. Nanny Wei accompanied Empress Dowager to walk in the Imperial garden with a smile. A large group of palace maids and eunuchs followed them with all kinds of things in their hands. No, he doesn't need to hurry. He has just recovered a little, and he can't stand fatigue. Empress Dowager sighed and said, She really didn't want Chu Luqian to hurry. Your Highness, Prince Qin, knows that Empress Dowager cares so much about Prince Qin. Your Highness has always been filial. Even if you can't make it in time, you will definitely ask Princess Qin to prepare a satisfactory congratulatory gift for you. Your Highness, you know Empress Dowager's intention best. Even I need your advice sometimes. Nanny Wei said with a smile and praised Chu Luqian very much. How can he be as good as you? He just has some intention. He is in poor health, and there are few people who can love him. This child has a hard life. Empress Dowager was happy at first, and then sighed. If I don't love him, he will be really pitiful. With the Empress Dowager around, how can Prince Qin be pitiful? Now he has married Princess Qin. I think Princess Qin is smart. Although she is a little young, she is an experienced woman. Since she came to the capital city, she has been admirable. Nanny Wei praised Xiao Wanru calmly. She was young and experienced many things, so she must be smart. 3 years ago, when she came to the capital city, what she did was good, but she reminded Empress Dowager that Xiao Wanru was a little too sophisticated. These words were just a warning. Empress Dowager would say it sometimes. Nanny Wei was Empress Dowager's henchman, so Empress Dowager would not feel that she had crossed the line when she said such words. She just sighed and said, Princess Chen is always a little young, and she didn't grow up in Marquis Xing's mansion. The Empress Dowager was actually more interested in older young ladies of aristocratic families. Furthermore, they were young ladies of aristocratic families who grew up by their parents' side. With the upbringing of their parents and the rules of aristocratic families, no matter how bad they were, they wouldn't be too bad. Empress Dowager, don't worry. Princess Chen is very good. Prince Chen chose Princess Chen because he likes her. Since His Highness is happy, he will definitely thank you, Imperial Grandmother. Nanny Wei seemed not to hear the regret in Empress Dowager's words and still kept praising her. After all, she is still a little young, and her etiquette is a little poor. She lost her mother and has no one to educate her. It's not a big deal that she was just a miss of Marquis Xing's mansion in the past. Now she has become Prince Chen's princess, and her words and deeds represent Prince Chen's face. If anything wrong happens, it will definitely be blamed on Chen. Hearing Nanny Wei's words, the Empress Dowager became more and more worried and sighed again. The more she thought about it, the more worried she was. It was said that Chen was not favored in Ningyuan Army General's mansion for so many years. The mistress of the family was Madame D, and the Empress Dowager would worry about whether Chen could teach her or not. Madame D was not a good person. She was unvirtuous and let Ningyuan Army General bear such a big cuckold. Could the child taught by her be good? If she didn't teach her, the child taught by the servants would be even worse. She didn't think about it before, and now the more she thought about it, the more regretful she was. If she had known it earlier, she would have waited and waited. No matter what, she had to wait until Chu Luiyue and Chu Liuzhou got married. Maybe she could find a better one and Chen might also find a more suitable one. Now she could only do this. Thinking of this, she felt depressed. Empress Dowager, what's that? When Nanny Wei was about to say something, she suddenly saw something red under a cluster of flowering trees. The flowers on that flowering tree were light yellow. They were big and beautiful, and there was no red in them at all. Nanny Wei walked over curiously and bent down to pick it up. Empress Dowager, it's a note. Nanny Wei said as she walked back, and then muttered to herself, why is it red? She walked to the Empress Dowager and opened the folded note. Immediately, a few words suddenly appeared in front of them. The Empress Dowager frowned. It turned out to be a contract. The red part on it was the part that had been printed with oil. How could such a thing fall here? She looked at the last place signed on it, Butterfly Clothing Shop. Who dropped this? It actually fell here. The Empress Dowager said. She had been in charge of a family before she got married, so she naturally knew that this kind of contract was very important. She didn't know who was so careless that he actually dropped the contract here. If it rained, the paper would be useless. Butterfly Clothing Shop? Nanny Wei also read it, and then murmured, why do I feel that this name is a little familiar? I also feel that it is very familiar. The Empress Dowager nodded. She also felt so. Nanny Wei thought for a moment, and suddenly her eyes lit up. Empress Dowager, I remember. Isn't this the shop that Princess Chen mentioned? She said it yesterday. Can you still remember, Empress Dowager? Reminded by Nanny Wei, the Empress Dowager also remembered it and nodded repeatedly. Yes, yes, there is such a thing. It is indeed that shop. Princess Chen also said that the shopkeeper of the shop met an ungrateful man who was ungrateful. Now he coveted her shop and even wanted her to marry into that mansion. What? This is... The Empress Dowager suddenly took the note from Nanny Wei's hand and looked at it carefully. This is not an ordinary contract. I don't quite understand it. It seems to be a mortgage. Nanny Wei was shocked. She came over to take a look and said, Empress Dowager, don't worry. It's not what you think. It's not what I think. I didn't expect. The Empress Dowager was so angry that her face turned livid and she couldn't even finish her words. If it was just a mortgage, it was not a problem. The problem was that the shop was only mortgaged for such a small amount of money. It was obvious that the shopkeeper deliberately took advantage of the shopkeeper's crisis to force the shopkeeper to sign such a contract. Needless to say, this contract was accidentally dropped here when Princess Chen entered the palace yesterday. She looked at the paper and found that it was indeed a little damp, but it didn't look like it was sprinkled with water. It should be the morning dew that stained the paper. If it wasn't damp, the folded paper wouldn't be able to see through the red ink inside. The red ink wouldn't show through, and Nanny Wei wouldn't notice it at a glance. It was obviously dropped yesterday and was thrown under the flower tree overnight. Empress Dowager, there must be another reason for this. Princess Chen would not do such a thing as bullying others. Princess Chen looks like a good person and speaks gently. Seeing that the Empress Dowager was angry, Nanny Wei hurriedly persuaded in a low voice, "Empress Dowager, you are not in good health. You may be hurt by anger. If Prince Chen returns to the capital, I can't explain it to him. Even now, you're still speaking up for her. If she was a good person, she wouldn't have such a contract. You even said that the shopkeeper of the shop was pitiful, and now she's making such a contract. It's obvious that she's coveting the shop. She really isn't taught by her mother, she's actually so petty." The Empress Dowager was very angry. She shook the note in her hand and said angrily, "The dignified Princess Chen coveted the shop and deliberately suppressed the shop when the shopkeeper was in urgent need of money. She could buy a shop at such a low price." The Empress Dowager was so angry that she wanted to laugh. She really thought that she didn't know anything. "Empress Dowager, don't be angry. I will ask Princess Chen to come here for you and let Princess Chen explain herself, okay?" Nanny Wei persuaded again. "Don't go. Even if you go, she will have something to say. No wonder she purposely came to me yesterday and said all these things. She said it was the fault of others. Now it seems that she said it on purpose. Come to me and report it. Even if something happens, it can't be blamed on her. She should have prepared something for me to hear. I don't want to listen to such lies." The more the Empress Dowager thought about it, the angrier she became. When she connected the things before and after, everything was connected. Otherwise, why would she specially come here yesterday? The Empress Dowager didn't suspect Xiao Wanru before, so she didn't feel anything wrong. Now that she was suspected, she was suspicious everywhere. She deliberately wanted to occupy the shop of a small family. She didn't look like a Princess Chen at all. "Empress Dowager," Nanny Wei said, "go out of the palace and check it out. I don't believe what she said anymore. Go and ask it clearly. If it was really done by Princess Chen, ask Princess Chen to settle the matter herself. Don't let her occupy other people's shop. It's their shop, so it has nothing to do with her." The Empress Dowager was really angry and urged repeatedly, "Yes, Empress Dowager, don't be angry. I will go out of the palace to check it out immediately and then report to you first. Or do you want to go to Princess Chen?" Nanny Wei repeatedly said yes. "If she really has ulterior motives, you don't have to go back to the palace. Go to Prince Chen's mansion. If there is anything, let her ask me." The Empress Dowager said angrily, "Yes, Empress Dowager. I will help you go back first and then go outside to inquire about it." Nanny Wei was happy in her heart, but she showed a concerned look. "I still want to stay here. If I go back at this time, it will be even more difficult for me to calm down. Find out the portraits I prepared for Prince Chen and send them to the attic in front. I will choose a few virtuous and outstanding young ladies for Chen. Since she can't afford the position of Prince Chen, she can't take it." The Empress Dowager pointed to a pavilion in front. She was really angry. She felt that it was really thoughtless to choose a princess for Chu Luchen at that time. She only wanted to make Chu Luchen satisfied, but she didn't think that Chu Luchen was still young. It was inevitable that he would be blinded by flowers. After all, he was just a young man and didn't have a deep vision. After seeing Xiao Wanru's true colors this time, she must ask Chen to choose a few good misses to marry into the mansion. As for the position of Princess Chen, it might not necessarily be Xiao Wanru's. Chapter 1071. The Empress Dowager was so angry that she wanted to choose a new concubine for Chu Luchen. Nanny Wei got the order from the Empress Dowager and hurried out of the palace. It was easy to find out the location of Butterfly Clothing Shop. Before Nanny Wei let the carriage go to Butterfly Clothing Shop, she parked in an alley. Looking at the customers coming and going, she was very satisfied. It was indeed a good shop, and it seemed that they had made a lot of money. Wei Dahai came out of nowhere. When he saw Nanny Wei, he hurriedly stepped forward and saluted. Then he whispered to Nanny Wei, "Auntie, wait a moment. I'll go and invite them over. We can't let Princess Chen's servants see them. Otherwise, there will be another accident, and Yang Ming won't dare to tell the truth. She's too presumptuous. This is the Emperor's territory. Does she really dare to use the guards of the prince's mansion?" Nanny Wei didn't expect Xiao Wanru to be so arrogant and said angrily. She still felt a little guilty before. After all, what happened before was not true, but now she was a little angry. If Princess Chen was such a person, it would be better to get rid of her, so as not to bring trouble to Prince Chen. It's because Princess Chen is bolder in the territory of the Emperor. Everyone knows that the Empress Dowager and the Emperor dote on Prince Chen very much. Princess Chen also takes advantage of Prince Chen's power. "Please wait a moment. I'll be right there," Wei Dahai said. He had already prepared everything and went to Butterfly Clothing Shop under Nanny Wei's angry gaze. When he entered the shop assistants inside recognized him and ignored him. They still did what they had been doing. The shopkeeper had already told them not to care about his business and not to let him come to the shopkeeper's room. They could let him go anywhere else as long as he didn't disturb the normal operation of Butterfly Clothing Shop. But there was still a clever shop assistant who reported Wei Dahai's arrival to Nanny Dong. Madame Dong froze for a moment. She didn't think that Wei Dahai could say anything to her at this time. The matter of the shop had been pushed to Princess Chen, and it was no longer something that she could change. Did Wei Dahai not want to stop? Did he want to make trouble again? He rolled his eyes and whispered a few words to the informant. The informant nodded and left. Wei Dahai walked around the store unhurriedly for a while, but he didn't buy anything. Finally, he turned to a corner and met a woman in her 30s. Wei Dahai seemed to know her. After the two exchanged a few words, they walked out together. The shop assistant who was watching them watched them leave together and went to a carriage deep in the alley. The waiter came in quickly and reported to Madame Dong. "Shopkeeper, Mr. Wei took a middle-aged woman out and went to a carriage in the alley on our right. The curtain of the carriage was down. I didn't see clearly who was inside, but I vaguely felt that it was a woman." "A middle-aged woman? Who is she?" Madame Dong was stunned and asked. "I asked the people in the shop, and they all said that they didn't know her. They said that this middle-aged woman had been here for a while, and she didn't look like she was from a rich family. She was dressed like the shopkeeper, and her appearance was similar. When I was in the shop, the employees were talking about her. They all said that when she stood next to the shopkeeper, they looked like sisters." The waiter said. The so-called sisters meant that they looked similar, and they were taken out of the shop. If they dressed like each other, could they be regarded as their own? Madame Dong's face changed, and she remembered Princess Chen's warning. Thinking of her own words, she immediately stood up in shock and said, "I'll go and have a look." She left the waiter and ran out alone. There were several carriages in the row. The waiter followed her out and quietly pointed to one of the carriages. The style of the carriage was very ordinary, as if it were the most common carriage on the street. There was a curtain hanging in front of it. Madame Dong had clothing materials in her shop, so she was very sensitive to materials. The material used for the curtain was definitely not ordinary. It just looked ordinary, but in fact, it was very unusual. It could even be said that the material used by ordinary people to make clothes was not as good as the curtain. Even if she didn't touch it herself, Madame Dong already knew in her heart. Such a curtain could only be used by rich and noble people. Madame Dong had seen Wei Dahai's carriage several times before. Although the carriage was much wider, the curtain on it was definitely not as good as the curtain in front of her. The people inside were not ordinary. What did Wei Dahai want to do? Could it be that he was plotting something again? After thinking for a while, she waved her hand to call the waiter over and whispered something in his ear. The waiter nodded, turned around, and ran out. He called a carriage on the side of the road and asked the carriage to go to Prince Chen's mansion. The waiter went to report. Madame Dong thought for a while, returned to the shop, went upstairs, and turned to the entrance of the alley. Sure enough, she saw the carriage she had just noticed. Standing behind the curtain, she stared at the carriage closely. Madame Dong could feel that there was something strange about it. In the carriage, the middle-aged woman bowed deeply to Nanny Wei. Before she got up, her face was already covered with tears, and her voice was choked with sobs. Please save me, Nanny. Are you Dong Mingyong? Nanny Wei looked at the Dong Mingyong in front of her and asked slowly. I am Dong Mingyong. Dong Mingyong said. Get up and talk. Nanny Wei said gently. Mingyong, get up first. I will take care of you. I will never let you be forced by Princess Chin. Your shop will be preserved. Wei Dehai said with concern. He reached out and helped Dong Ming's mother to sit down at the side. Nanny Wei looked up and down at Dong Mingyong a few more times. She felt that Dong Mingyong was pleasing to the eye, so her voice became softer and softer. Do you really want to reconcile with Dehai? Nanny, he and I, we are childhood sweethearts. The misunderstanding at the beginning has been solved. It is fate that we meet again. We are not young anymore. Even if it is for ourselves, we should let go of our past enmity. How can we not think it through? Nanny, please help us. Dong Mingyong wiped her tears and said, Does Princess Chen really want to rob your shop? Nanny Wei was silent for a while and asked slowly. Princess Chen thinks that this shop is very good and very suitable for her, so she blackmailed me with the matter of Commandery Princess Tianyuan and asked me to buy the shop to her. This is to give her an explanation. Otherwise, she will definitely stir up trouble and make my shop unable to continue. Nanny, I only have one daughter. We believe in fate. We have been doing business carefully for so many years, and it is not easy for us to save so much money. Dong Mingyong cried more and more aggrieved. Her helpless and indignant voice reminded Nanny Wei of the helpless days when she was a child, and she felt more and more sorry for her. Well, I know about it. This chapter is not over. Please turn to the next page. Well, since it is Princess Chen who takes advantage of her power to bully others, I will report it to her impartially. You can go back now and do business as usual. When the matter is settled, you can enter the Wei's mansion. Nanny Wei said gently. Thank you, Nanny. Thank you, Nanny. Wei Mingyong was so excited that she wanted to kneel down again, but she was stopped by Wei Dehai. Don't kneel. Auntie is a kind-hearted person. She can't bear to see people like you being bullied. You go back first. I will talk with Auntie for a while. Okay, then I'll go first. Wei Mingyong wiped her tears, nodded, and gently bowed to Nanny Wei again. Then she got off the carriage and went straight to Butterfly Clothing Shop, as if she was really the shopkeeper of Butterfly Clothing Shop. Madame Dong, who was behind the curtain upstairs, had been paying attention to them. When she saw the middle-aged woman come out, she called a waiter and asked him to go downstairs to greet her. She still hid in the blind corner and continued to monitor the movement below. Wei Dehai came out after a while. When he got off the carriage, he looked around. Seeing that no one was paying attention to him, he went to the back of the alley. There were a few carriages parked there, and one of them was his. After getting on the carriage of his mansion, the coachman turned a corner and left from the back of the alley. Nanny Wei's carriage stopped for a while, and then the coachman drove the carriage away. Madame Dong stood high and looked far. Seeing that the carriage seemed to be heading for Prince Chen's mansion, she frowned tightly. The princess was right. This matter was far from over. Wei Dehai was so bold that he actually dared to go against Princess Chen. It seemed that this Wei Dehai was not as useless as he thought. If he guessed correctly, this carriage should belong to the palace. Fortunately, she had sent someone to inform Princess Chen just now. Even if someone from the palace suddenly went there, the princess must have a way to deal with it. Madame Dong always believed in Xiao Wanru. Although she was worried, she did not panic. She came out from the curtain and went downstairs to her accounting room. After sitting inside for a while, she saw the shop assistant she had instructed to go out come back. Shopkeeper, that woman doesn't live far away. When she came in, she walked around our store. When she saw that no one was paying attention to her, she left through the back door. I followed her and found that she doesn't live far away. She lives in a courtyard 2 streets away from us. The courtyard isn't big, but the door is tightly shut. I went to inquire about it and heard that there's only one woman living there with a servant woman. I don't know if she's someone's mistress or not. Anyway, the male master of that family rarely comes here, and even if he does, he's very mysterious. I usually don't see him. The shop assistant reported. Do you remember to learn it next time? Madame Dong nodded and asked worriedly. Don't worry, I'm familiar with this area. I won't make a mistake at the intersection. Next time you want to find this woman, I'll take you there. There won't be any mistake. The shop assistant patted his chest and said. Madame Dong nodded and gave a tael of silver to the shop assistant. The shop assistant thanked her and left. In front of Prince Chen's mansion, Nanny Wei's carriage stopped. The coachman stepped forward. The guard at the door stopped the coachman and asked sternly, Who are you? Nanny Wei, who serves the Empress Dowager. She has the Empress Dowager's order. Please inform Princess Chin. The coachman cupped his hands and said, End of this chapter. Chapter 1072. Hearing that she was a servant of the Empress Dowager, the guards did not dare to neglect her and immediately sent someone to report inside. After a while, Yujia appeared at the door, walked to the carriage, and bowed respectfully. Nanny Wei. Prince Chen's mansion is really big. I've waited for so long to see Princess Chen's servant. Nanny Wei asked the coachman to lift the curtain and looked at Yujia with hostility. I'm really sorry, Nanny. Our mansion is indeed a little big. Princess got the news and sent me out, but it was still too late. Nanny Wei asked you to wait outside for a while. Yujia seemed not to hear the anger in Nanny Wei's words and said with a smile. She ordered the coachman to follow her into the mansion. When they arrived at the parking lot of Prince Chen's mansion, Yujia helped Nanny Wei get out of the carriage and said with a smile, Nanny Wei used to come from the side door. What made you come from the front door today? The front door is not like the side door. It's not so convenient to come and go. Nanny Wei is tired. She smiled before saying anything, which made Nanny Wei unable to vent her anger for a while. Is your princess busy? Nanny Wei said in a light tone, ignoring Yujia's previous words. What can our princess be busy with? Prince is not in the mansion. In addition to waiting for our master to come back, our princess can only prepare the birthday gift for the Empress Dowager. Yujia said with a smile. She walked fast and kept leading the way. It was much closer than from the gate to the backyard. The parking lot was located in the inner courtyard. This parking lot was also the place where the wives of the S parked. Nanny Wei ignored Yujia along the way. No matter what Yujia said, she just snorted coldly, which meant that she knew what Yujia meant. In the end, Yujia couldn't say anything, so she had to stop talking and quietly led Nanny Wei to Xiao Wanru. There were needles and thread in Xiao Wanru's room. Many different kinds of embroidery threads were thrown there. Some were gorgeous, and some were dark. There were also a lot of brocades on the table on the side. There was also an unfinished table screen, which was not big but very exquisite. It was basically ready, but there was still a line at the corner. The sewing thread was dragged outside, and there were a few maids helping in the room. Xiao Wanru was holding a needle and thread in her hand. Hearing that Nanny Wei had come, she put down the thread and turned around with a smile. Her delicate little face was so beautiful that even Nanny Wei, who had seen many beauties in the Imperial Palace, had to admire that Princess Chen was unique. However, even though she was so beautiful, her heart was quite dark. For the sake of money, Nanny Wei could even do that kind of thing. Nanny Wei was also very angry with Xiao Wanru. She had been criticized by Wei Dehai before, so she really couldn't laugh in front of Xiao Wanru. Fortunately, she had been in the Imperial Palace for a long time, so she showed a fake smile on her face. She took 2 steps forward and was about to salute Xiao Wanru. Xiao Wanru hurriedly stepped forward to support Nanny Wei. She didn't even dare to make a sound and pulled Nanny Wei to sit down in a chair on the side. Princess Chin, is this prepared for the Empress Dowager? Nanny Wei raised her eyebrows, looked at the table screen on it, and asked. What do you think, Nanny Wei? Xiao Wanru asked with a smile. She was obviously very satisfied. Princess Chen has chosen a good one. The Empress Dowager will definitely be satisfied. Nanny Wei praised with a faint look. Nanny Wei, you have been serving Imperial Grandmother for a long time, so you must understand Imperial Grandmother's intention. Nanny Wei, please give me some advice. What do you think needs to be improved? Xiao Wanru sincerely asked for advice. Nanny Wei tilted her head and looked at it. Then she reached out to pick it up and turned it around. She said, Princess Chen's tabletop is very beautiful. The Empress Dowager will definitely be satisfied with such a beautiful tabletop. The Empress Dowager is old and likes some gorgeous things. She hopes to see young girls dressed jubilantly and look very outstanding. She looked down at the edge of the table screen and said, Princess Chen's table screen is so exquisite and the embroidery pattern is so beautiful. The Empress Dowager must like it very much. If we can change it here, it will be even better. Nanny Wei pointed at the edge of the table screen. There was a rim there, which was not very long, which made the table screen more elegant. The rim, which was neither too long nor too short, was actually just right. Nanny Wei, do you mean to make the rim wider? Xiao Wanru didn't understand what Nanny Wei meant at first. After thinking about it with her head tilted, her eyes lit up. Older people like to see the younger generation make the table screen brighter and more festive. Nanny Wei said with a smile. Therefore, if the rim was smaller, it should be bigger and more gorgeous. But if it was done in this way, it would seem that the table screen was the main one. The pattern on the table screen above could not suppress the rim, and it would seem that the rim was the main one. There was a difference in the relationship between the arrangement of the embroidered table screen and the other accessories. Xiao Wanru tilted her head and looked at it again. She looked a little confused and seemed to feel that it was not good. Your Highness, you can do whatever you want. Anyway, as long as it is a gift from Princess Chen, the Empress Dowager will definitely like it. The Empress Dowager likes Prince Chen the most and loves Princess Chen very much. Nanny Wei said with a smile. Chu Luchen was the reason why the Empress Dowager valued Xiao Wanru so much. In fact, this situation was not good for women. If Chu Luchen didn't like Xiao Wanru, she would have no one to support her. It was a must for every new daughter-in-law to please her husband's family, especially such a high-status husband. What's more, this was the Empress Dowager. She couldn't let the Empress Dowager love her all the time. She had to make the Empress Dowager value her very much. In this way, even if Princess Chen had some new concubines, Xiao Wanru would have someone to rely on. Then we'd better change it. Chulu, go and pick out some colorful rims. Let me see. I want big and bright ones. Xiao Wanru immediately ordered Chulu. Chulu nodded, put down the scissors in her hand, and went to the pile of brocade colorful threads to pick the rims. Your Highness, what do you think of this one? Chulu found a bright red rim from the inside. The embroidery was twice as long as the original one, which looked cumbersome and didn't match the elegant color on the brocade screen at first glance. Nanny Wei, please help me take a look. Xiao Wanru said hesitantly. She looked up at Nanny Wei and seemed to want her to make a decision. If Princess Chen thinks it's good, then it's good. I'm just a servant and can't really make a decision for Princess Chen. Nanny Wei refused with a smile. How could she help Xiao Wanru decide on the rims? If she really used such a rim, the Empress Dowager would not only dislike it but also be angry. How could a mistress who couldn't even match the rims be a good mistress? She was afraid that the entire Prince Chen's mansion would be in a mess. Then, choose another one. Xiao Wanru looked at the bright red rims and said helplessly. Nanny Wei nodded with a smile. She didn't say yes or no, but just let Xiao Wanru choose by herself. The previous one was excellent. If it was matched with a long, big and beautiful one, in fact, it was not suitable. No matter what she sent to the Empress Dowager would not like it, especially now that the Empress Dowager was not satisfied with Princess Chen. In addition, Princess Chen did not do anything good, so she was even more dissatisfied. Her nephew was right. Since she was against Princess Chen, she couldn't let her get the upper hand. Her many years of experience in the palace also told Nanny Wei that if she wanted to step on someone, she should step on him. She should step on him so hard that he would never have a chance to rise again. Otherwise, he might become a big trouble in the future. Both Wei Dahai and Nanny Wei thought so in this regard. The second one she chose was still gorgeous with big embroidery. Although it was better than the previous one, it was not much better. Looking at Princess Chen's satisfied expression, Nanny Wei sneered in her heart. Although the Empress Dowager also appreciated young people's gorgeous clothes, it also included Princess Chen. Prince Chen liked elegant clothes all year round. In the eyes of the Empress Dowager, her best grandson was elegant and refined. If Xiao Wanru had nothing to do with Prince Chen, the Empress Dowager would like her to wear bright red clothes on this day. However, Xiao Wanru was now Princess Chen. Wearing clothes that did not match Prince Chen, even if Prince Chen was not present, the Empress Dowager would not like it. Moreover, there was also this table and screen that did not distinguish between the main and secondary ones, which would definitely make the Empress Dowager feel disgusted. Nanny Wei's words successfully set 2 traps for Xiao Wanru. She didn't believe that Princess Chen could avoid it. Even if she could avoid the table and screen, she couldn't avoid the clothes and accessories. The Empress Dowager should be choosing the portraits of the daughters of aristocratic families now. After she went back, she would definitely give the Empress Dowager some advice and let the Empress Dowager choose a few powerful daughters, so that Princess Chen in front of her could not suppress her and finally fell out of favor and ended up in a miserable situation. Nanny Wei had this idea. At this time, she was not in a hurry. She quietly watched Xiao Wanru and her maid busy, and even showed a smile on her face. It seemed that she was very satisfied with the clothes Xiao Wanru had chosen just now. However, she did not agree with it, which was her prudence as the Empress Dowager's personal nanny. After being busy for a while, Xiao Wanru suddenly seemed to think of Nanny Wei. She hurriedly put down the scarf in her hand and said to Nanny Wei with a humble smile, "Nanny Wei, I'm really sorry to leave you aside." "Nanny Wei, what's the matter today?" "It's nothing important." The Empress Dowager remembered what Princess Chen said about the butterfly clothing shop yesterday, so she specially sent me to tell her. The Empress Dowager thinks that the butterfly clothing shop is good, so she asked Princess Chen not to interfere in it. Nanny Wei said politely with a smile. Xiao Wanru was stunned. She blinked her clear eyes and asked after a long while, "Imperial Grandmother, do you mean that the Empress Dowager has taken a fancy to this shop?" "I really don't know what the Empress Dowager means. I just sent her a message. Now that the message has been sent, I'll go back first." Nanny Wei stood up and said goodbye. "Nanny Wei, please wait." Xiao Wanru stood up and bowed to Nanny Wei. "Nanny Wei, I have another question. I wonder if Nanny Wei can answer my doubts? Princess Chen, you are still young. Sometimes you may not know the rules. You can only ask what you should ask, and you'd better not ask what you shouldn't ask." Nanny Wei stood still and glanced at Xiao Wanru with a trace of sarcasm in her eyes. Even if Princess Chen was Princess Chen, so what? She couldn't scare her with just one sentence. Chapter 1073. Nanny Wei, what do you mean? Xiao Wanru's face darkened. "Your Highness, I've made it very clear. If you really want to buy this shop, you can go to the Empress Dowager to plead for it," Nanny Wei said with a low smile. After saying that, she walked out. When she reached the door, she suddenly stopped and said, "Your Highness, I'm tired, so I'm going to enter the palace from the side door. Please send someone to inform the coachman and ask him to wait in the original place." After saying that, she walked to the side door with ease. Nanny Wei often came to Prince Chen's mansion. In the past, when she sent things for the Empress Dowager, she always went through the side door. Yujia was so angry that her face turned livid. Looking at Nanny Wei's back, she almost couldn't help rushing over and holding her back. Xiao Wanru sat down extremely calmly, slightly raised the corners of her mouth, and said to Yujia with a smile, "What's wrong? Are you really angry?" "Your Highness, she has gone too far. Even if she is a servant of the Empress Dowager, you are still Princess Chen. She, an old servant, can't ruin you." Yujia turned around, put down the curtain, and said angrily. She has seen Wei Dahai before. It seems that she really has something to do with Wei Dahai. I have underestimated Wei Dahai. I didn't expect that he has such great ability to get in touch with Nanny Wei. When I mentioned butterfly clothing shop yesterday, Nanny Wei looked strange. There is something wrong with it. Xiao Wanru said slowly, pushed away the fence in front of her, and said, just put up the original fence. Since she knew that Nanny Wei came with ill intentions, Xiao Wanru had certainly prepared for it. The fence was just to test Nanny Wei. Now it seemed that Nanny Wei had great malice against her. Nanny Dong had sent a waiter to report what he had seen clearly. He even said that the middle-aged woman came out of butterfly clothing shop. She was dressed like Nanny Dong, and even her age was similar to Nanny Dong's. It could be seen that she deliberately imitated Nanny Dong. She deceived Nanny Wei with a fake, but if Nanny Wei hadn't been prejudiced against her, she wouldn't have been so easily fooled. Granny Wei's surname was Wei, and so was Wei Dehai's. It was easy to guess the relationship between them. After Nanny Wei left the palace, she went to butterfly clothing shop. Wei Dehai had already known the news and waited outside. He also prepared a fake for her. It could be seen that he had already known that Nanny Wei was going to leave the palace. Nanny Wei said that she came here under the order of the Empress Dowager, which meant that the Empress Dowager should have known it. On the other hand, it meant that Nanny Wei told the Empress Dowager something greedy or asked someone to prepare some evidence for her. The Empress Dowager was so angry that she sent her out to investigate. She didn't enter the house to investigate and still listened to Wei Dehai's words. Then, she rushed to his house and was full of malice towards him. It could be seen that she was bewitched by Wei Dehai. Wang Fei, Wei Mama was cheated. Why didn't you make it clear? Chu Li's attitude was relatively mild. She felt that it was reasonable for Nanny Wei to behave like this. I have been prejudiced against you for a long time. No matter how much I say, I won't think that you are right. Nanny Wei won't listen to me now. Xiao Wanru slowly put away her smile, her face darkened, and her watery eyes became cold. She had never been a kind person. Since Nanny Wei wanted to harm her and believed in Wei Dehai, she didn't need to explain. Nanny Wei went to butterfly clothing shop today and had confirmed that she had slandered her in front of the Empress Dowager. If Nanny Wei was really a good person, after listening to Wei Dehai's words, the first thing she should do was to verify it. If she was not careful about this kind of thing, she might be doomed eternally. Nanny Wei believed what she heard and followed Wei Dehai's order to deal with her. That was evil. In this world, many people would make explanations for their actions. They all thought that they were right, but they didn't think clearly before acting and had various reasons afterwards. Xiao Wanru had always been a cold person. She would not sacrifice herself for others' misunderstandings. Your Highness, Nanny Wei works for the Empress Dowager. She came from butterfly clothing shop and went straight to our mansion. She just showed off to you. Does it mean that the Empress Dowager is also displeased with you? When she left yesterday, it was obvious that the Empress Dowager liked you very much. Yu Jie also restrained her anger and began to worry. Nanny Wei was different from others. She was the Empress Dowager's most trusted person. Although Prince Chen was noble, he was the most filial to the Empress Dowager. It doesn't matter. Xiao Wanru said, let's wait and see. Make another set of the clothes you chose before, and the color should be lighter. Your Highness, the Empress Dowager likes festive clothes, and it's her birthday. Your clothes look festive and look very good in them. Why do you want to make another set of lighter ones? Yu Jie said in confusion. The set of clothes was extremely rich and magnificent. The flying peony patterns and the bright red clothes made Xiao Wanru's face as white as jade. However, it was not the kind of bloodless paleness. There was a touch of pink on her face, and her skin was as clear as jade. Such a set of clothes stunned the maids at that time, and then they all praised it. Most of Xiao Wanru's clothes were light, and she had never worn such a flamboyant bright red. Moreover, she wore it with the flowers of wealth and honor. In fact, it was very easy to wear such clothes. However, it made Xiao Wanru look extremely gorgeous in it. Such a color, such a pattern, and it was the Empress Dowager's birthday, so the Empress Dowager would definitely like it. Is it because of what Nanny Wei said just now? Chu Lu blinked, thought for a moment, and said with a frown, but this servant thinks that she was talking about the edge of the screen. She deliberately said that to make you change the one that is suitable, and to match it with an unsuitable one that is also gaudy. The edge is not suitable. Can you see that? Xiao Wanru picked up the scarf selected at the end. The long lace with tassels was also very beautiful when looked at alone, but it was obviously not the same as the screen on the table. Anyone with the little feeling would feel that it was inappropriate. Nanny Wei had been in the palace for so long, so how could she know such obvious words? Even if she was bewitched by her for a while, she would definitely realize it after a while. Even if she didn't realize it, the maids would see that it was inappropriate. Nanny Wei was making a diversion. The important thing was that she should wear gorgeous clothes. However, after hearing Nanny Wei's words, Xiao Wanru felt that it was inappropriate. Xiao Wanru suddenly remembered that once the Empress Dowager sent Chu Luchen a few pieces of clothes that had been made in the palace before. They were all very elegant. Even if there were some decorative patterns, they were not the most eye-catching. She chose some embroidery patterns made of gold thread. They were elegant and noble but not gorgeous. Chu Liuchen's clothes did not have such gorgeous clothes. If she wore such gorgeous clothes, she would not match Chu Luchen. The Empress Dowager would definitely not like her and Chu Luchen to be completely incompatible. A trace of coldness flashed in her eyes, and her eyes suddenly became cold. Gorgeous? Her skin was very white, and her lips had always been gorgeous. In the last life, she was driven out of the Wen's mansion by old Madame Wen and Gu Shishu because of this reason. She was gorgeous, so she was not the same type as Chu Luchen. If she wore more gorgeous clothes, she would definitely be more different from Chu Luchen. They were two very conspicuous types. Others might not care much about it, but the Empress Dowager was different. The Empress Dowager had always cared about Chu Liuchen's health. If someone stirred up trouble, it was very likely to cause trouble. If the Empress Dowager drove her out of the palace in public, how would she have the face to occupy the position of Prince Qin in the future? Moreover, she would definitely be punished later. In his previous life, he had been chased out of his house by such a ridiculous reason and became homeless. In this life, she actually met it again. The Empress Dowager led her to put her hands on the gorgeous clothes. She was going to ruin her. The palace was not the Prime Minister's mansion. The Prime Minister's mansion could do such a thing. If the Empress Dowager was angry because of it, she would definitely be more severe. If it was in the past, even if the Empress Dowager was not happy, she might not show it in front of others. But now it was different. With Nanny Wei's slanderous words and her carelessness, it would definitely cause a big trouble. Your Highness has always worn light clothes, so how can I wear too much? Make another set of light lotus-colored clothes, and match it with light gold embroidery. Embroider some simple patterns. Gold thread has always been a noble color, so just a little embellishment will not make it look like your status. Xiao Wanru paused and said, I'm Prince Qin, so I should dress the same as your Highness. If your Highness is here, our clothes will also match. No matter whether Chu Luchen was here or not, she should dress according to Chu Liuchen's style. At this time, the two maids also understood. They looked at each other with a lingering fear on their faces. Don't worry, Your Highness. I'll go and get a few pieces of cloth first. After you choose them, I'll ask the sewing room to make them quickly. Chu Lu nodded and turned to Xiao Wanru's warehouse. There were many good materials in it. Xiao Wanru nodded. Originally, in order to look gorgeous, the embroidery patterns on the clothes were gorgeous and complicated, but now it was not necessary. She only needed to embroider some simple patterns with gold thread. Gold thread originally represented luxury. If she worked in this way, she could make the clothes in a hurry. Yu Jie, go and ask Nanny Dong to come here, Xiao Wanru said to Yu Jie. She still had something to ask Nanny Dong. It was better to be prepared for the imposter. Nanny Wei would definitely make things difficult for her. She had a lot of things to deal with now, so she could only deal with it by remaining unchanged. Nanny Dong came very soon. At the same time, people from Ru and Great Elder Princess's mansion came to Prince Chen's mansion with her. Xiao Wanru had asked Ru and Great Elder Princess about the Ministry of Internal Affairs before. Nanny Dong entered the door first and told Xiao Wanru about the imposter. The imposter lived in a courtyard nearby. There was a mistress in the courtyard who might be Wei Dehai's mistress, and the impostor was probably the wet nurse of that mistress. Chapter 1074. It was Madame Dong who guessed it. After that, she specially asked her shop assistant to inquire about it. When she was about to report it to Xiao Wanru, she met Yu Jie coming over. Wei Dehai's mistress? This result surprised Xiao Wanru. Yes, this subordinate was just guessing. Wei Dehai is a very cautious person. If there was no relationship, he wouldn't casually find a woman to impersonate me. That family is very mysterious to begin with, and there are very few male leads. This subordinate asked a servant to describe Wei Dehai's appearance, and indeed, someone said it. Madame Dong said. Xiao Wanru thought for a moment and asked, "How long has it been?" I specially inquired about it. It has been several years since he moved here. Although the male master is rarely seen, after a long time, someone will always see him once or twice. Madame Dong said. When she knew that this might be Wei Dehai's mistress, she specially asked the servants to inquire about it in detail. Continue to keep an eye on his mistress, Xiao Wanru said coldly. Since this clue was an unexpected surprise, she said, if there is anything unusual, send someone to report it immediately. As for the rest, just do as before. If Wei Dehai comes, don't pay attention to him. Just do what you have been doing. If he asks about the shop, don't say anything to him. Don't worry, Your Highness. I know. If he comes to ask, I will say that it has nothing to do with him and tell him not to think too much. Xiao has figured it out now and no longer has the intention to be with him. She said that he, her biological father, died early, so I am relieved now, Madame Dong said. She was most worried about Dong Xiao, for fear that Dong Xiao would be fooled by Wei Dehai. This time, after Xiao heard what Wei Dehai said to her, Xiao had no father in her heart. No matter what he said or promised in the future, she would ignore him. Xiao is living too close to you now. Let her move to another place. Although Xiao won't pay attention to Wei Dehai, she is still her father. It's not good for her to be a junior. Let her family temporarily live in a manor outside the city. That way, Wei Dehai won't be able to persuade Xiao and will come up with a vicious scheme against Xiao and you. Xiao Wanru was not as optimistic as Madame Dong thought and arranged. Madame Dong immediately understood Xiao Wanru's meaning and nodded repeatedly. She was so grateful that she was about to kowtow to Xiao Wanru. She broke out in a cold sweat on her back. She really ignored Wei Dehai's character. He was a very despicable person and had no affection for Xiao. In the end, he might really capture Xiao and threaten her. Xiao Wanru asked Yu Jie to hold her and waved her hand. Nanny Dong, you should be careful. Nothing will happen in the shop, but don't go to places with few people outside the shop. When you go out, ask a waiter to follow you. Wei Dehai is not a simple person. He is not what you see. Madame Dong nodded repeatedly and said, Princess, don't worry. I won't come out if there's nothing important. Even if I come out, I will ask a few men to come with me. I will never act alone, let alone go to that kind of uninhabited place. Wei Dehai is a real villain, and a vicious villain. I won't go out unless necessary. Even if I go out, I will ask a few men to go with me. I will never act alone, let alone go to a deserted place. Wei Dehai is a real villain, and a vicious one. After instructing Madame Dong, she sent someone to follow Madame Dong to help Dong Xiao move away. Xiao Wanru invited an old steward of and great elder princess's mansion, who was waiting in the wing room. The old steward came in, bowed to Xiao Wanru, and said, Your Highness, our master was going to come and tell you in person, but there happened to be a guest here. Our master was afraid that you would be anxious, so she specially asked me to come here to tell you about the Department of Internal Affairs. What do you mean? Xiao Wanru asked. Our master said that the Department of Internal Affairs is now in the hands of Marquis Chenzhen. It is Marquis Chenzhen who is in charge of the affairs of the Department of Internal Affairs in the name of management. The old steward said with a smile. The Department of Internal Affairs was in charge of the affairs of the palace. Although it did not have real power in the court, it was of a high rank. It was an idle post at the second level. Those who had always been in charge of the Department of Internal Affairs were either of royal blood or related to the concubines in the harem. Marquis Chingan's identity was not ordinary. He was the biological brother of the Empress Dowager, and he was also the imperial uncle. Is he the elder brother of the Empress Dowager? Even though Xiao Wanru knew it, she still asked. Yes, our master said that the affairs of the Department of Internal Affairs have been in charge of Marquis Chingan for many years. Nothing has happened for so many years. I don't know why you ask about it, Your Highness. If there is something, please tell our master. The old steward of Great Elder Princess's mansion said flatteringly. Grandma, who are you going to see? Xiao Wanru suddenly changed the topic and asked. It's Infanta Yuan and Ruaping Great Elder Princess. In the past, Ruaping Great Elder Princess was not very close to our master. I don't know why she comes to see our master from time to time recently. The old steward answered. Xiao Wanru's heart skipped a beat. Why are you here today? It's nothing important. I just want to ask about the doctor here. I heard that there is a miracle-working doctor in Prince Chen's mansion. Infanta Yuan and wants to see the miracle-working doctor of Prince Chen's mansion for the wound on her face, but the princess hasn't seen him before, so Ruaping Great Elder Princess brought Infanta Yuan and to see our master. The old steward answered cleverly. The so-called miracle-working doctor in Prince Chen's mansion referred to Chiju. The miracle-working doctor of Prince Chen's mansion was specially found by the Empress Dowager for Chu Luchen. She specially placed him in Prince Chen's mansion, which meant that Chiju was a member of Prince Chen's mansion, not an imperial physician in the imperial palace, and could not be used by anyone. It could be said that anyone who wanted to ask Chiju to see a doctor must get Chu Liuchen's consent. This miracle-working doctor was in charge of all Chu Liuchen's medical cases, so his importance was self-evident. Chu Luchen was in poor health, and his medical cases could not be seen casually. Therefore, this miracle-working doctor's status in Prince Chen's mansion was even more extraordinary. Has the wound on Infanta Yuan Anne's face not healed? Xiao Wanru asked in confusion. According to Infanta Yuan Anne's previous words, it should be Prince Zhou who sent Dr. Chiu there. It seems that something is wrong. I was outside just now, so I didn't hear it clearly. I only said that it was not very good and wanted to ask the miracle-working doctor of Prince Chen's mansion to see a doctor. Our master said that if it was convenient for the princess, she could ask him to see a doctor. If it was not convenient, forget it. It would not be a good thing to talk about it. The old steward conveyed in Great Elder Princess's words. In the past, the two families were not close. Now that the two families were close, and Great Elder Princess and Infanta Yuan and were so humble, so she felt a little embarrassed. However, she did not want to embarrass Xiao Wanru, so she just said this. Xiao Wanru's eyes darkened. It was indeed not good to interfere in this kind of thing. After thinking for a while, she said, Go and tell Grandma that I'm not in good health. Help me refuse it first and talk about it later. She refused to see guests with the excuse of poor health. She even seldom came to Great Elder Princess's mansion, let alone others. This was also the reason why Infanta Yuan and went to and Great Elder Princess's mansion first instead of looking for her directly. Now the two families seemed to be on good terms, so it was natural for her to go to and Great Elder Princess's mansion to find out what was going on. If she got the princess's consent, she would not be afraid of being refused at the door. The old steward answered. Thinking that she had said what she should say, she said goodbye to Xiao Wanru. Your Highness, if Infanta Yuan Anne's face hasn't recovered, it may really affect her marriage. Chula came in with a few pieces of satin. She had stood aside and heard the words in the room just now. After the old steward left, she walked in. It's true. When she was in the Imperial Palace, she still trusted Dr. Chiu very much. She even didn't allow the Imperial physicians to apply medicine for her again. Does she not trust him now? Xiao Wanru said to herself. It should be because Dr. Chiu's medicine is useless. Yu Jie curled her lips and said, the doctors she liked were like Mingqiu Nun, but she would never like Dr. Chiu. No matter how good his medical skills were, she would not like such a doctor who had no medical ethics at all. Wang Yishu was killed by Dr. Chiu's superb medical skills. "Your Highness, we can't treat Infanta Yuan. No one knows what medicine Dr. Chiu gave her before. If she recovers, it will be Dr. Chiu's credit. If she doesn't, it will be our mansion's fault." Yu Jie turned around and tried to persuade Xiao Wanru. "Your Highness, it's not easy to treat Infanta Yuan," Chu Lu also said. Xiao Wanru nodded and had an inexplicable feeling in her heart. Could it be that Dr. Chiu refused to treat Infanta Yuan? Why did Infanta Yuan turn to her for help? However, this matter was not urgent at the moment. Her grandma refused for her and she refused to see any guests. Although she had gone out before, the rumor that she was unwell still existed. Infanta Yuan and great elder princess would definitely not rashly turn to see her, so it was much quieter here. The most important thing at the moment was the affairs of the Ministry of Internal Affairs. "Go and ask Qing come here." Xiao Wanru had to ask Qing to investigate Marquis Chen of the Ministry of Internal Affairs. Xiao Wanru had a bad hunch that the accident of the Empress Dowager in the last life was probably related to Marquis Chen, the elder brother of the Empress Dowager. If there was anyone who could remain safe and sound after the accident of the Empress Dowager's birthday, there was no one else but Marquis Chen. If it were someone else, even if it was not a serious crime, he would at least be dismissed from his official post and never be employed again. However, it was the elder brother of the Empress Dowager, so some things could be explained. When Marquis Chen left the court, he walked casually on the street and looked around. He was not young and didn't like to sit in a carriage all the time. He often got out of the carriage on the street not far from home and asked his family's carriage to go back to the mansion first. Then he walked back leisurely with one or two servants with his hands clasped behind his back. He looked around while walking, which made him very happy. He thought that he was not very capable. In charge of the Ministry of Internal Affairs, in fact, many things were done by his subordinates. He just went to the office every day and signed a few words. If there was nothing important, he would go back to the mansion early and stroll on the street. As he walked, he looked at the goods of various shops. He was in a good mood and smiled, which made him very approachable. Chapter 1075. Marquis Chen knew his own situation. Being a stable Marquis Chen was already very good. As for other things, he could forget about them as he did not have the ability to do so. His sister was the Empress Dowager and his nephew was the Emperor. He had nothing to be dissatisfied with. Marquis Chen was an amiable little old man. He specially walked the street. When people who knew him called out to him, he would cheerfully nod at them. The Ministry of Internal Affairs managed all the miscellaneous things in the palace. Marquis Chen felt that he should take a look at the prices of some goods in the market. This was to prevent the price of goods from the Ministry of Internal Affairs from being too high and making people think that he had benefited from it. Sometimes, after seeing good goods and confirming that there were no hidden dangers, Marquis Chen would order people to send them to the palace. After a few clever merchants learned of this, they became even more polite to Marquis Chen. There were even people who specially waited by the side of the road to see if they could please Marquis Chen and get him to take a liking to their own goods. To be able to send goods to the palace represented not only money but also dignity. Even if it was not frequent, once in a while, they could brag about it for the rest of their lives. For merchants, this was a well-known thing. If he had even done business in the palace, then there was no need to mention the business of others. It could be seen that doing business with him was extremely safe. Thus, Marquis Chen was warmly greeted by many shops along the way. Today, Marquis Chen was in a good mood and walked leisurely. From time to time, he would greet people and enter the shops to look at the goods. However, he did not see anything that suited him, so he just walked by. "Marquis, we have a few new items today. Would you like to take a look?" When he passed by an antique shop, the shopkeeper was already waiting at the door. When he saw Marquis Chen, he called out to him from afar. This was Marquis Chen's favorite shop in the past. Usually, when he passed by this shop, he would definitely enter the door. He could be considered to be familiar with the shopkeeper. As he walked into the shop, he asked, "What items do you have?" "Marquis, you will know after you take a look." The shopkeeper smiled and led Marquis Chen inside. When they sat down in the room for honored guests, The waiter had already brought tea. Marquis Chen took a sip and praised, "This tea is not bad. The Marquis is too polite. Who doesn't know that the tea that the Marquis drinks is bestowed by the palace? The tea that I drink here is just some ordinary tea leaves. It's just for the sake of freshness." The shopkeeper smiled politely. "Your tea is not just new, right?" Marquis Chen took another sip and tasted it. Spring tea was already on the market, and the Imperial Palace had already sent a new batch of tea over. However, they felt that it was not as good as the tea in front of them. Marquis Chen was surprised. "The Marquis is really amazing, you can even taste such a delicate tea. In fact, these tea leaves are not sold outside, they are grown in my hometown. There are only a few tea trees, so I carefully planted them at home. When it's about time, I invited a young girl to pluck them before the dew falls, and then had an old craftsman stir-fry them on the spot. Although the quantity is not much, it still took a lot of effort. If the Marquis likes it, I can give you a caddy here, any more will be gone." The old shopkeeper was acquainted with Marquis Chen, so he did not mind his words. "All right, then I'll thank you, shopkeeper." Marquis Chen smiled and thanked him. He really felt that the taste was good. It was even better than the one given by the palace. Except that it was someone else's private goods and the quantity was not much. Even if they wanted to supply the palace, it would not be enough. When the time came, it would cause trouble. At the very least, there must be enough goods for the palace. Otherwise, if the concubines of some palace drank it well and wanted to drink more, they might as well not have any. Moreover, there was still the emperor. If the emperor took a liking to it, he might lose his head if he didn't have it. It was not entirely true that the tributes from the palace were the best. When the shopkeeper saw Marquis Chen accept the tea leaves, he clapped his hands twice. The two assistants waiting at the door came in with a few brocade boxes and a few scrolls of paintings. The brocade boxes were opened one by one, and the paintings were placed by the side. The shopkeeper stood up and pointed at Marquis Chen with a smile. "Marquis, what do you think of this jade pendant?" It was not an ordinary jade, but a blood-red jade. It was sparkling and translucent, without a single flaw. Looking at it, one could tell that it was not an ordinary jade. Marquis Chen stood up and picked up the jade pendant. As he looked at it, he nodded. Not bad, very good. This is a good item." He held it up to the window and looked at it again. It was indeed translucent and exquisite. "May you take a look at this?" The shopkeeper smiled and pointed at another brocade box. In this brocade box was a ruby. It was a complete piece. It was only slightly cut, but it was still a complete piece. This kind of precious stone was very rare in the market. Looking at the quality, Marquis Chen could not help but praise it. In the third brocade box was a red piece. It was unclear what it was. It looked like a mushroom, but it was not. "What is this?" Marquis Chen asked curiously. He reached out to take it. "Marquis, slow down. This is not how you take it." The shopkeeper reached out to stop him. Then, he carefully carried the brocade box in front of Marquis Chen. "Marquis, please smell it." "Psst. Blood lingji mushroom?" Marquis Chen raised his nose and smelled it. A light medicinal fragrance entered his nose. It immediately cleared his mind and his eyes lit up. The shopkeeper gave him a thumbs up. "Marquis, you have a good eye. Isn't this the blood lingji mushroom? Although it is not big, it is not young." Good. Marquis Chen praised. "Marquis, take a look at these paintings. Is there anything that you like? They are definitely authentic. They have all been appraised. Marquis, you do not need to doubt their authenticity." The shopkeeper walked in front of the paintings. He reached out and picked one up. After opening it, he spread it out on the table. Marquis Chen walked over and nodded as he read. He did not have much experience in the court, but he was very interested in calligraphy and paintings. The paintings in front of him were indeed good. After reading one scroll, he looked at the next. These paintings were all very good. Although they were not as good as the previous three, they were still good. Normally, they would not be seen in the market. When he finished reading, Marquis Chen said, "Shopkeeper, I want all of these. Give me a discount, or I will really go bankrupt." Marquis, you must be joking. With your wealth, not to mention these small things, even if you wanted to buy my shop, you would only need to say the word. It would not hurt you at all. With the deal done, the shopkeeper was in a good mood. He flattered Marquis Chingen without batting an eyelid. He told the waiter to bring Marquis Chingen's manservant to settle the bill. It is the Empress Dowager's birthday. I have always wanted to find a few different things to give to the Empress Dowager. Recently, I have been buying quite a bit, Marquis Chingen said. He had asked the shopkeeper to look for these items, but in fact he had not found them at all. Actually, it was only these few items, but it was already very good to be able to get them. The Marquis is crying about being poor to a small business like ours. How can we survive? Since the Marquis has said so, we will bleed a lot today. How about giving the Marquis a 10% discount? The shopkeeper had a pained expression. All right. Thank you very much, shopkeeper. Marquis Chingen laughed. The reputation of this shop was very good. In the past, they did not give discounts, no matter how many items they bought. Right now, it was indeed because of Marquis Chingen that they were giving a 10% discount. The items just now were all very valuable. With this, they had earned quite a bit of silver. Marquis, just come to our shop more often in the future, the shopkeeper said cheerfully. As the two of them spoke, the waiter and the manservant had finished calculating the money. Marquis Chingen told the waiter to follow his manservant back to Marquis Chingen's wife to get the money. He planned to continue shopping. After walking a short distance, he suddenly saw a waiter catch up to him. Marquis, our shopkeeper said that there is another painting. Would you like to take a look? This waiter looked a bit unfamiliar. He was wearing the clothes of the waiter from the shop and had caught up from behind. Marquis Chingen felt that the shopkeeper had probably found something suitable. He turned to walk back. Marquis, there is no need to go. Just take a look here. If you don't like it, our shopkeeper can let me take it back. That way, you won't have to make another trip, the waiter said cleverly. The waiter said cleverly. He pointed to the door not far away. Our shopkeeper said that if the Marquis likes it, let me take it back for the Marquis. The matter of the silver can be settled later. Don't tell me that the Marquis is afraid that the Marquis will not pay the bill. The waiter looked like he knew how to talk. He smiled and said everything in one breath, causing Marquis Chingen to nod. He turned to look at the door not far away. Although it was not far, it would be troublesome to walk back. For a painting, there was indeed no need to make another trip. With his relationship with the shopkeeper, he was not afraid that he would renege on his debt. It was just a painting. There was indeed no need to go back. Marquis Chingen nodded and took the painting. When he opened it, he saw the painting in front of him. His eyes immediately lit up. It had a maple leaf as the background, and it was exactly the painting he had imagined. He had previously asked the painters in the palace to draw similar paintings, but they were always unsatisfactory. The Empress Dowager had 2 sons and raised another. She had 3 sons under her name. In order to express the Empress Dowager's motherly love for her sons, she would draw a mother and 3 princes. The painting in front of him was exactly like that. It was perfectly drawn according to Marquis Chingen's wishes. The woman in the painting had a kind face, and she was feeding medicine to a child. This child looked to be the oldest. There was another child who was leaning on the woman's side admiringly, watching his elder brother drink medicine on the bed. The youngest child was playing with a ball, and he turned around to look at his mother and 2 elder brothers in a cute manner. The painting was very appropriate and the mood was perfect. The best part was the maple leaf. It was a painting with maple leaves as the background. Most of it was made of maple leaves. Even the women's clothes, skirts, the children's jackets, and the blankets on the bed were made of maple leaves. There were only a few blank spots with a few strokes of ink. The Empress Dowager had a small hobby. Others might not know, but Marquis Chingen was very clear about it. The scene in front of him was very appropriate and definitely suited the Empress Dowager's wishes. Chapter 1076. The sky had already darkened, but the carriage was still on the road. Although Princess Yu Yen was sitting in the carriage, she looked exhausted. She pulled the curtains and looked outside with an ugly expression on her face. Go and ask him why he hasn't stopped to rest. If we go any further, we will be in the wilderness again. Princess Yu Yen said angrily. Princess. The palace maid looked on timidly. She really did not dare to look for Prince Jin. What are you afraid of? Will he really kill you? No matter what, you are still my woman. Seeing the palace maid's useless look, Princess Yu Yen said angrily. She had always been pampered and had never suffered like this. Previously, when Chu Luchen was walking slowly, she still had the heart to show her face in front of Chu Luchen. At that time, although Chu Luchen did not pay attention to her, at least he looked friendly. However, since that incident, this Prince Jin seemed to have removed the veil of tenderness. Princess, princess. The palace maid was so scared that she started crying. She knelt down in front of Princess Yu Yen in the carriage. Princess, I don't dare. You useless lowly girl. Since you are useless, what use do I have for you? Princess Yu Yen was furious. She stretched out her hand and gave the palace maid a hard slap, venting all her anger on the palace maid. The palace maid cried out in pain and fell into the carriage. There was a clear palm print on her face. Princess Yu Yen, what's the matter? A cold voice suddenly came from outside the carriage, piercing one's heart like ice. Nothing, I just want to ask when Prince Jin can rest. Princess Yu Yan's hand froze, then slowly retracted it. She touched her temple and said softly. Outside the carriage, the guard said coldly, Prince Chen has ordered that Princess Yu Yen can rest in the carriage in another 2 hours. How is Prince Jin? Princess Yu Yen adjusted her expression, lifted the curtain, and asked with a face full of concern. Thank you for your concern, Princess. The guard said coldly, then turned around and rode away. Princess Yu Yen dropped the curtain in her hand heavily, her face livid with anger. Prince Chen really did not take her seriously. One day, she would make Chu Luchen kneel under her skirt and beg for her to look back on him. Princess. The palace maid said timidly. Rise. Princess Yu Yen said coldly and secretly gritted her teeth. Her other palace maid was killed by Chu Luchen. That night, she brought a palace maid with her to deliver a bowl of soup to Chu Luchen, but she was killed by Chu Luchen with a sword. Even now, it was still a nightmare for Princess Yu Yen. The people around him were all trembling with fear. No one dared to be presumptuous in front of Chu Luchen. Even if they wanted to send someone to inquire about it, they did not dare to do so. Princess Yu Yen had to admit that her looks were outstanding. When she was in Su country, there were so many men surrounding her skirt, but this Prince Chen actually did not have the slightest bit of pity for her. She really could not believe it. It must be that Chu Luchen was blind and didn't see her good side. When he saw her good side in the future, she would definitely let him know the consequences of offending her. While Princess Yu Yen was secretly venting her anger, the guard had already spurred his horse forward and came to the front of Chu Liuchen's carriage to report, Your Highness, everything is fine. I have already passed the message over. Is there anyone who objects? Chu Liuchen's lazy voice came from the carriage. The 2 princesses and the 2 lords feel that Your Highness's idea is very good. We should indeed return to the capital as soon as possible. The Imperial bodyguard coldly replied to this unrealistic answer. As for the beating and scolding of Princess Yu Yen in the carriage and the sound of Commandery Prince Qing smashing the cup, they involuntarily took it as approval. Princess Yu Tao and Ning Yuan Tian also had no objection. What else could they have? If anyone disagrees, report it to me. In the carriage, Chu Luchen leaned on the soft couch and said gently, Yes, Your Highness. The guard's heart twitched. He felt that it was better not to trouble the prince with such a small matter. Master, can we reach the capital in such a hurry? Xiao Xuanzi looked out of the window through the screen window. It was getting late. In a while, he had to light the lamp and hurry on his journey. But even so, it was impossible for him to return to the capital city on the Empress Dowager's birthday. Even if they kept rushing, they wouldn't make it in time. I'll leave first, Chu Luchen said lightly. Xiao Xuanzi's face changed. He sat up straight and said, Your Highness, your body, this king's body is more or less recovered now. With proper treatment, nothing will happen. Chu Luchen chuckled with a kind of extreme gentleness but coldness that was like an all that broke the ice. Since both of you want to, this prince can't rush back, but this prince has to rush back to congratulate Imperial grandmother on her birthday. Your Highness, who wants to stop you from entering the capital? Xiao Xuanzi swallowed his saliva and asked cautiously. What he said just now was also a subconscious question. After asking, Xiao Xuanzi remembered that the prince's body was actually not as weak as it seemed. The poison in his body had been removed, and he was now in the stage of recuperation. The previous weakness was really weak, and the current weakness was just the surface. Although the prince had a weak body since he was young, he had always practiced martial arts. Now that the poison had been removed, he was much healthier than the average person. However, he was still worried. After many years of habit, he always felt that the prince's health was more important. It doesn't matter who did it. I have to let them see me appear at Imperial grandmother's birthday party. Chu Luchen chuckled. Your Highness, I'm really worried about you entering the capital alone. I want to follow you to the capital. Xiao Xuanzi said. You stay here and sit in this carriage for me. Chu Luchen shook his head and said indifferently. The look on his face looked gentle, but there was some inexplicable strangeness and coldness in it. With such a large group of people, it was indeed too late to rush to the capital, but he didn't need to take them with him. He could take a few horses directly back to the capital. As for here, with Xiao Xuanzi here, no one could really open the carriage to see him inside. This Princess Yuyan had been coming to him before, but now she neither had the energy nor the courage to do so. This was very good. After leaving the capital for so long, he had to go back as soon as possible. Your Highness, what if Princess Yuyan still sends people to spy on us? Xiao Xuanzi asked. Other people would not take the initiative to come to him, except for this self-righteous Princess Yuyan, who always looked for opportunities to come to him. After killing her, a palace maid, these days she quieted down a little, but there was no guarantee that she would not come again. If she still sends people to come here, just kill them directly. Chu Luchen said coldly, and his tone was so gentle as if he was not talking about killing people, but some romantic things. Yes, I understand. Xiao Xuanzi said with a smile. Follow me after a long time. How could he not understand his master's mind? He didn't care about the appearance of this Princess Yuyan at all. His only real gentleness was given to the princess. In his eyes, other women were no different from men and women at all. They were just human beings. They were classified as useful or useless. If this Princess Yuyan came to him again, he would directly slap her in the face. Her face would hurt, so she did not dare to come forward again. In a few days, I will directly return to the capital and find someone to pretend to be me. You go to the capital in a hurry. As long as Qin Huaiyong does not suspect anything, it will be fine. As for Chu Qing, it seems that he is sensible and will not trouble me. Chu Luchen snorted. Since the matter about Princess Yuyan, Chu Qing had been much quieter in the past few days. Your Highness, do we still need to intercept the news sent by Commandery Prince Qing to the capital? Xiao Xuanzi asked in a low voice. Chu Qing had repeatedly sent news to the capital, but they were all intercepted by his master. The matter about Princess Yuyan was an accident, and Commandery Prince Qing seemed to be anxious. He had not received any news from the capital, so he kept sending news to the capital. Intercept it. No matter who he talks to, intercept it. Chu Luchen curved his thin lips and said, if he sends the news to the capital, it will be much more peaceful after getting rid of a few of his subordinates. Yes, Your Highness, I understand. Xiao Xuanzi understood tacitly and knew that his master wanted to kill one to warn others. Commandery Prince Qing had done a lot of things in private. Although he looked honest, he was actually very scheming. Xiao Wenru did not know that Chu Luchen wanted to go to the capital alone. The more she listened to the news Qing got, the colder her back became. It turned out to be Marquis Chenjen, or it should be said that it was indeed Marquis Chenjen. He sent it to Marquis Chenjen's mansion? After hearing Qing Er's report, Xiao Wenru frowned. Was there something wrong with the painting or the maple leaf? It didn't look like a maple leaf. But if it wasn't a maple leaf, what was wrong with it? How could she get the painting from Marquis Chenjen? Such a painting must be a birthday gift prepared for the Empress Dowager. She bit the corner of her lips gently. She had not been married to Chu Luchan for a long time and had not been to Marquis Chingan's mansion, so it was not convenient for her to take the initiative to open the door at this time. He sent it to Marquis Chingan's mansion. Your Highness, I sent someone to keep an eye on the shop assistant before. He sent the painting to Marquis Chingan's mansion and mixed into the crowd after leaving. My man turned around and entered a shop late. When I looked for him again, he was gone. Chinger said. The shop assistant was very careful. Even if he did not find anyone following him, he dealt with it carefully. Continue to keep an eye on Marquis Chingan's mansion. If you see Marquis Chingan taking the painting out, report to me immediately. Xiao Wanru bit the corner of her lips gently and said, no matter what, she had to get the painting. Even if she couldn't get it, she had to destroy it. But she had no way to go to Marquis Chingan's mansion. She didn't even have a reason to go to Marquis Chingan's mansion, let alone to get the painting. She gently twisted the handkerchief between her fingers, suddenly stood up and said decisively, let's go to Grandma's house now. Since she couldn't do it, her grandma must be able to do it. Compared with her, the new Princess Chin, her grandma had a reason to have casual contact with such an old noble family. She needed a reason to go to Marquis Chingan's mansion. Now the only one who could solve this problem was her grandma. Chapter 1077. And Great Elder Princess was very surprised that Xiao Wanru came at this time. After taking her hand and asking her to sit down, she looked her up and down and found that she looked the same as before, so she breathed a sigh of relief. She had wanted to visit Xiao Wanru before, but Xiao Wanru told her not to come and said that if she came to visit her, she would ask someone to inquire about it from Great Elder Princess. Why do you come here today? Is there anything wrong? When Great Elder Princess asked with concern. She had told her not to go, but now she suddenly came to visit her. When Great Elder Princess was really worried. Grandma, I'm fine. I just want to visit you. What happened before has passed, so it's okay to visit you at this time. Xiao Wanru said with a smile, took Ru and Great Elder Princess's hand and shook it. Xiao Wanru didn't want to involve Ru and Great Elder Princess in the matter of the painting. It was best not to know this kind of thing. Her grandma was straightforward and short-tempered, so it was safest for her not to know anything. What happened in the last life was too mysterious. There was no need for her grandma to explain it too much, which would only make her worry. You are so mysterious every day. You even don't let me come to see you. You didn't tell me what happened before in detail. What happened? Why did the Emperor's Imperial guards come to your mansion? When Great Elder Princess waved her hand and asked after the others left. She had been worried about it for several days. If she hadn't trusted her granddaughter, she wouldn't have been able to sit still at that time and wanted to go to the Imperial Palace to ask the Empress Dowager about it. It was not a good thing for the Emperor's Imperial guards to appear in any mansion. It usually brought about a bloody storm. However, the storm was big but the raindrops were small, which made people more suspicious. Chu Luchan was not in the mansion, so people could only suspect Xiao Wanru, Princess Chen. And Great Elder Princess was relieved when her granddaughter dealt with the matter of Marquis Xing's mansion with ease. She suppressed her temper and listened to her granddaughter's words. Grandmother, it's not a big deal. It's just that it's the remnants of the previous dynasty. Someone must have deliberately spread the news to the Emperor's ears, so the Emperor sent people over. Fortunately, the chief steward was there. Otherwise, I was just an inner court princess. Although my status was noble, I wouldn't be useful at this time. Xiao Wanru said with a flower-like smile. Her watery eyes curved with a smile, showing a sense of carelessness. It could be seen that it was really not a big deal. Ruian Great Elder Princess breathed a sigh of relief. She was really afraid that something serious would happen. The chief steward of Prince Chen's mansion was someone she had to respect when she met him. He was the chief steward of the Empress's palace and wholeheartedly protected the little master. He was even unwilling to stay in the palace just to protect the little master. In this aspect, Ru and Great Elder Princess really appreciated the chief steward's loyalty. Thinking of what happened that day, she should really thank the chief steward. Although Zhuozhuo was smart, She was young and inexperienced. When encountering this kind of thing, she would immediately be flustered. With the chief steward in charge of the affairs, this matter was resolved. And Great Elder Princess still felt a lingering fear when she thought of it. No one expected that the emperor would send imperial guards to Prince Chen's mansion. There were guards sent by the emperor at the gate of Prince Chen's mansion before, but these guards ostensibly protected Prince Chen's mansion and would not disturb Princess Chen's peace. She thought that the emperor was really going to deal with Prince Chen. When you go back, bring a gift for me to the chief steward of your mansion. Tell him that I thank him. And Great Elder Princess said, I thank you on behalf of the chief steward. Xiao Wanru accepted it calmly with a smile. Given her grandma's character, she would definitely thank the chief steward at this time. If she didn't accept it, it would make her grandma suspicious. It was the best for her to accept it calmly. Grandma, has Infanta Yuan An's face recovered yet? I heard that the doctor was very good at medical skills. Didn't it work? Xiao Wanru changed the topic and asked curiously. When Great Elder Princess was about to go to Prince Chen's mansion, she didn't come because of Infanta Yuan and Ruaping Great Elder Princess. Her words attracted Great Elder Princess's attention. She shook her head and said, the doctor is very good, but now I heard that he has returned to his hometown. Returned to his hometown? Xiao Wanru was stunned for a moment. She really didn't think of this reason. Did Dr. Chiu have a hometown? Where was his hometown? His household registration had been changed again and again, so she didn't know where his hometown was at all. And Great Elder Princess sighed and said, yes, he said that something happened in his family and he had to go back first. He left some medicine for Infanta Yuan, but Infanta Yuan accidentally broke it. So he was anxious to find another skilled doctor. And Great Elder Princess sighed. She was straightforward but kind-hearted. She couldn't bear to see Infanta Yuan cry. When she came over that day, although Infanta Yuan had a veil on her face, she took it off and showed it to her. There was indeed a scar on her face. A woman's appearance was the most precious, and Infanta Yuan was about to marry Prince Zhou. This was not only undignified but also shameful. Dr. Chiu had returned to his hometown? Xiao Wanru didn't believe it from the bottom of her heart. During the 3 years in Marquis Xing's mansion, she had never seen Dr. Chiu return home. Mingqiu Nun had also said that Dr. Chiu was simply an orphan and didn't have a home. It was obvious that she deliberately made excuses. But what was Dr. Chiu doing now? He didn't even care about the scar on Infanta Yuan An's face? Did he go to treat another person who was more important than Infanta Yuan An, or for other reasons? Xiao Wanru really couldn't figure it out at the moment. With all kinds of thoughts in her mind, she still looked calm and said with a smile, why didn't Infanta Yuan go to the Imperial Palace to find an Imperial physician? The Imperial physicians in the Imperial Institute of Medicine are all skilled in medicine. Why did they come to our mansion? Dr. Qi never treats outsiders. Great Elder Princess said that Yuan didn't trust the Imperial physicians in the Imperial Palace and said that they didn't treat her well. The Imperial physicians had asked her to apply the medicine on her face before, so they really didn't have good taste. Great Elder Princess explained. Xiao Wanru was speechless for a while. She didn't like the Imperial physicians in the Imperial Palace, but liked Dr. Qi in her mansion. It was quite unbelievable. Grandma, what did you say later? I just said that you were not in good health. You forced yourself to go out and basically had no strength to see outsiders. Even I didn't come to see you, for fear that you might have used up your energy. We can only wait for this matter now. Great Elder Princess said. Then she looked at Xiao Wanru and reminded her, I used this as an excuse before. Now that you have come out in good health, I'm afraid that Infanta Yuan will still come to your mansion, or maybe directly to your mansion. You should be prepared. Grandma, don't worry. I got it. Xiao Wanru nodded and agreed. Since she came to Great Elder Princess's mansion, it meant that she was not seriously ill. It would be unreasonable for her to use this reason to stop her. It's not easy to deal with this matter. She has been treated by a doctor before, but she hasn't fully recovered yet. If she gets treated again, it will benefit others. But if she doesn't recover, it will be your mansion's fault. Prince Zhou's wedding is a big deal, so you can't be careless. And Great Elder Princess was afraid that Xiao Wenru was young and ignorant, so she said bluntly, "Grandma, don't worry. I know. I won't take this matter." Xiao Wenru reassured her. "But if she comes to your mansion, what are you going to do? You can't refuse her directly, can you?" And Great Elder Princess was still worried. She thought that it was not appropriate for her granddaughter to go out at this time. It was best for her granddaughter to come out after Chu Luchen came to the mansion. When Chu Luchen was in the mansion, no one dared to go to Prince Chen's mansion to ask for trouble. Now her granddaughter couldn't be in charge of the mansion, so she had to give face to others. "If she comes to my mansion, I have a way to deal with it. Grandma, don't worry." Xiao Wenru patted her chest with a smile and said confidently. Looking at the confidence on her pretty little face, and Great Elder Princess laughed at this time even though she was full of worries. Then she took her hand and said with a sigh, "Shuozhua, if you have anything to say, just tell me. Although I don't have much ability, I can always protect you." Looking at and Great Elder Princess's worried and concerned look, Xiao Wenru felt a little sad in her heart. She reached out to hold and Great Elder Princess and said, "Grandma, don't worry. With you here, I will be at ease." She would not be forced to live in the nunnery like in the last life. All her relatives had died, and she, as a Great Elder Princess, was forced to live in the nunnery. Xiao Wenru would not believe it if she said that she was sincere. The corners of and Great Elder Princess's eyes turned slightly red. She reached out to pat Xiao Wenru's thin shoulder and felt a lump in her throat. Her granddaughter was really sensible and smart. Thinking that she was so smart at such a young age and could even make plans for herself and how, she felt sad for a moment. If Xiao Wenru was a girl raised by a noble family, how could she work so hard? Seeing that his granddaughter knew nothing and was living happily under the knees of her parents, he couldn't help but sigh. If she hadn't been driven to a dead end, how could there be such a sensible child? Xiao Wenru rarely mentioned the things in the Qin's mansion in front of and Great Elder Princess. Even if she mentioned it, she would not mention the bad things and only talked about the interesting things when she was young. And Great Elder Princess knew that her granddaughter was afraid that she would worry about her, so she only reported the good things and not the bad things. Xiao Wenru was too sensible and kept everything in her heart. How many things could she bear on her thin shoulders? "Grandma, I am very good and happy. Now Prince Chen, you and Hao are here." Xiao Wenru seemed to be able to see and Great Elder Princess's expression. She leaned in Great Elder Princess's arms and said softly. She hugged Great Elder Princess hard and then let go of her with a smile. My child, my child." And Great Elder Princess felt speechless. How could this child ask for so little? She was so happy with this. She choked with sobs and thought, this child is too self-reliant. "Grandma, I have something to trouble you today." Seeing that she made her grandma cry, Xiao Wenru hurriedly pulled her sleeve and shook it, acting coquettishly. "What's the matter? Tell me." And Great Elder Princess said in a hurry. She really wanted to help. Chapter 1078. How Are Grandmother and Marquis Chenjen? Xiao Wenru blinked her long eyelashes and asked. She didn't tell her maternal grandmother the truth because she was afraid of accidents. Given her maternal grandmother's temperament and her straightforward personality, it would be safer if she didn't know anything. Manner of Marquis Chenjen? The Empress Dowager's maiden family? Ruian Great Elder Princess asked in surprise. Did something happen in Marquis Chenjen's mansion? What could maternal grandmother have to do? It's just for Imperial grandmother's birthday. I just married into Prince Chen's mansion, and our prince is not here now. It's the first time I've prepared a birthday gift for Imperial grandmother, so I have to please her. However, I haven't been in contact with Imperial grandmother for a long time, so I want to inquire about Empress Dowager's preferences from Marquis Chenyen's mansion. Xiao Wenru blushed faintly and lowered her head shyly. Seeing that Ruth and Great Elder Princess looked like a nervous daughter-in-law with a flower-like face full of shyness and joy, and Great Elder Princess smiled happily. She looked like a real bride. She always worried that her granddaughter was too burdensome and lacked the cheerfulness and naivety of a young girl. From the looks of it, she was at least satisfied with this marriage. Otherwise, she wouldn't have revealed such a naive expression. It's fine, it's fine. I have a good relationship with Marquis Chingen's wife. Tomorrow, I'll bring you to visit Marquis Chingen and ask about the Empress Dowager's preferences. Ruth and Great Elder Princess said with a smile. In fact, I also know some of the Empress Dowager's preferences, so you don't have to go to Marquis Chingen's mansion to inquire about them. She had been the Empress Dowager's sister-in-law for so many years, so she could understand the Empress Dowager's preferences. Her maternal grandmother knew a little, but Zhuozhuo wanted to know more details. If she accidentally offended the Empress Dowager, not only would the Empress Dowager not like her, but Prince would also lose face. Xiao Wanru said with a shy smile. This situation was very in line with her current identity. A young daughter-in-law who had just married into her husband's family was naturally worried that she would not be able to win the favor of her elders, or that she would accidentally make them dislike her. So what if she was an ordinary young daughter-in-law, not to mention the royal family, the #1 family in the world? Alright, it's all up to you. Then Great Elder Princess nodded repeatedly and suddenly felt that she had to go to Marquis Chingen's mansion. After Xiao Wanru returned to Prince Chen's mansion, she sent an invitation card to Marquis Chingen's mansion. The next day, he took Xiao Wanru to Marquis Chingen's mansion early in the morning. Marchioness Chingen had long received the news and had been waiting for a long time. Xiao Wanru followed the young madam of Marquis Chingen's mansion, who led the way, to a flower hall. An old lady sitting in the middle of the flower hall had already stood up and came out to welcome them with a smile. Although Marchioness Chingen was the sister-in-law of the Empress Dowager, in terms of status, she was not as noble as an Great Elder Princess and Prince Chen. Madam, you don't have to be so polite. This isn't my first time here. Rayan Great Elder Princess took 2 steps forward and pulled up Marchioness Chingen, who was about to bow, with a smile. It wasn't the first time for the princess to come, but it was the first time for Princess Chen. They couldn't be rude. Marchioness Chingen said with a smile and was about to bow to Xiao Wanru. Xiao Wanru raised her hand to Marchioness Chingen with a smile and said, Madam, you're welcome. You're an elder, so there's no need to be so polite. Seeing that Xiao Wanru was not only beautiful but also elegant, Marchioness Chingen nodded repeatedly and had a good impression of her. This was the first time she had seen Xiao Wanru in person. She had heard from the Empress Dowager that Prince Chen had taken a fancy to Princess Chen and said that he had waited for her for a few years. She liked Xiao Wanru more and more from the bottom of her heart. She didn't think that Xiao Wanru was just favored by Prince Chen because of her young age. Who knew when she would fall out of favor? After all, Prince Chen looked gentle, but in fact he was very cold-hearted and no one could enter his heart. Princess Chen only entered Prince Chen's mansion because she had a good reputation. Marchioness Chingen was old and experienced a lot. Prince Chen was indeed cold-hearted. At the beginning, she had wanted to marry her granddaughter to Prince Chen. Although Prince Chen might not live a long life, at least he had a noble status. However, Prince Chen did not give face to his granddaughters. All of them looked gentle and amiable in the past, but in the eyes of Marquis Chingen, they seemed to be looking at a dead thing, without a trace of emotion. From that moment on, Marquis Chingen's madam gave up and never thought of sending her granddaughters to Prince Chen's mansion again. Since Princess Chen was really chosen by Prince Chen and he had waited for her for 3 years, it could be seen that he really cared about her. Marchioness Chingen had watched Chu Luchen grow up and knew that he was cold-hearted. But if he really fell in love with her, no one could replace him. At present, Princess Chen seemed to be really outstanding, not only in appearance but also in manners. It was said that she had been raised in Qin's mansion since she was a child and had a hard life. She didn't have a biological mother to educate her, but her adoptive mother had always wanted to plot against her. In this case, her appearance and manners were no worse than those of ordinary misses from aristocratic families, and even more decent in some aspects. She was worthy of her identity as Princess Chin. The three of them sat down in the flower hall, and Great Elder Princess was sitting in the guest seat in the middle. Xiao Wanru and young Madam of Marchioness Chenjen accompanied them on both sides. Why did Great Elder Princess have time to come here today? Old Madam put down the teacup in her hand and asked with a smile. It's nothing important. I just want to ask what good things your mansion has prepared for the Empress Dowager's birthday. I want to refer to them. When Great Elder Princess also put down the teacup and said with a smile. On the way here, Xiao Wanru had discussed with Great Elder Princess and said so. In fact, our mansion didn't prepare many things. Master Ho brought some back before and is still choosing. Marchioness Chenjen said with a smile. In the past few days, she brought things to the mansion almost every day. She said that she wanted to choose good things, but she couldn't make a decision in a short time. Instead, she brought a lot of things to the mansion almost every day. At first, Marchioness Chenjen checked them one by one, but later, she became numb. She just gave the money to the servant to pay the bill. Seeing that the money in her hand was much less, Marchioness Chenjen also told Marquis Chenjen to buy what he liked and not to buy all the good and bad things. If Great Elder Princess wants to see them, I'll ask someone to show you the things our Master Ho bought these days, but they may not be good. In fact, the Empress Dowager may not like what our Master Ho likes. Marchioness Chenjen said again, while instructing the old maid behind her to take out all the things the Master Ho bought in the past few days. The old maid took a few people to the study of Marquis Chenjen and soon brought a lot of things over. There were rows of brocade boxes stacked on top of each other on the table, and there were scrolls of calligraphy and paintings behind them. Why were there so many things? And Great Elder Princess widened her eyes in surprise. Looking at the table full of things, she gasped for a moment. Were they going to give away all these things? How could it be? Marchioness Chenjen said with a wry smile. Our Master Ho was just an ignorant person. When he saw something he liked, he would bring it to the mansion. He thought that if he liked it, the Empress Dowager would also like it. However, every time he saw a new thing, he thought it was better than the previous one. After being fooled by others, he thought it was the best, so he bought it again. Marchioness Chenjen had told her many times about Marquis Chenjen's character. However, Marquis Chenjen was a good person. He listened to whatever she said to his face, but he was soft-hearted. The next day, when he was told otherwise, he felt that it was right, so he ignored Marchioness Chenjen's words. Xiao Wanru stood up curiously, walked to the table, turned around and asked, Marchioness Chenjen, can I have a look? Princess Chen, please go ahead. Marchioness Chenjen waved her hand and said. She had sharp eyes and could tell that Great Elder Princess came here mainly to accompany Princess Chen this time. Princess Chen was newly married. In order to please the Empress Dowager, she specially came to their mansion to ask about their gifts so as to find out the Empress Dowager's preference. Marchioness Chenjen appreciated Xiao Wanru very much, so she would not hide anything. The Empress Dowager had always liked Prince Chen, so Marquis Chenjen's mansion naturally treated the people of Prince Chen's mansion well. Moreover, Xiao Wanru was also very suitable for Marchioness Chenjen. Princess Chen, please take a look. This is a jade stone. Young Madam of Marchioness Chenjen came over, opened a brocade box, and handed it to Xiao Wanru. Xiao Wanru looked at it. It was a piece of red jade, which looked pretty. It was a pair of jade bracelets. Young Madam of Marchioness Chenjen opened another one. This time, it was a pair of blood jade bracelets, which were exquisite and gorgeous. It was a piece of jade pendant. The blood jade pendant was simple in shape. At first glance, one could tell that it was a treasure of the previous generation. It was a piece of ruby, which had been cut out of the raw stone. It had not been made into an object, but it could be matched with any gold ornament. It was a tea set made of blood-red cinnabar. There were 101 pink pearls, which could be made into Buddha beads, which could clear one's mind and calm one's mind. It was red. She opened the brocade boxes one by one. Looking at the treasures which were either red or pink, not only Xiao Wanru was stunned, but also Great Elder Princess. I know that the Empress Dowager likes festive colors, but I didn't say that she likes them to such an extent. And Great Elder Princess blinked and asked tentatively. She really didn't know that the Empress Dowager liked red so much. Could it be that she had really overlooked something? She had been the sister-in-law of the Empress Dowager for so many years, but she really didn't notice it. Marchioness Chingen said with a wry smile. He said that the Empress Dowager likes them, but in fact, it is our Marquis who likes them. However, he said that the Empress Dowager also likes them. He said that the Empress Dowager liked this kind of red ornaments a long time ago, so he prepared all these. In fact, after so many years, although the Empress Dowager still likes them, she doesn't like them so much. Speaking of this, Marchioness Chingen really felt very helpless. She had tried to persuade him, but Marquis Chingen just thought so and didn't listen to her. The Empress Dowager was now the Empress Dowager, so there was no need to use red to set off her position as the legal empress as before. However, her husband didn't listen to her no matter what she said. Chapter 1079. Marchioness Chingen actually knew that her husband had a knot in his heart. The knot in his heart was about the Empress Dowager. He remembered that he was so disappointing that he couldn't support his sister. As a result, although his sister was the legal wife, she was suppressed by a favored woman. Marchioness Chingen felt sorry for his sister every time he thought of it. He wanted to search for some red objects for his sister. He couldn't support his sister with his strength, so he wanted to show the dignity of the legal wife through these objects. He wanted to support his sister spiritually. Marquis Chingen always felt that he had let down his younger sister, that he had failed to live up to expectations and caused his younger sister to suffer grievances. However, he never thought that his younger sister was now the Empress Dowager. The current emperor was not the Empress Dowager's husband, but her biological son. Even the emperor had to lower his head in front of her. She didn't need to wear bright red clothes to show her dignity as the legal wife. Marchioness Chingen saw these things more clearly than Marchioness Chingen, so she tried to persuade him again and again. However, he was stubborn and thought that his sister just liked them. Since he liked them, he would try his best to find these objects to make his sister happy. He didn't have much ability, but at least he wouldn't treat his sister badly in terms of clothes. Marquis thinks that the Empress Dowager has suffered a little in the past. Marchioness Chingen explained with a wry smile. Xiao Wanru understood. She looked at these objects helplessly and turned her eyes to the calligraphy and paintings aside. In fact, her purpose of coming here today was not for the things in these brocade boxes. Seeing her look over, the young madam of Marchioness Chingen hurriedly took out a scroll of calligraphy and opened it. A scroll of landscape painting appeared in front of her. It seemed to be an authentic work. The young madam of Marchioness Chingen put the painting in front of Xiao Wanru and opened another one. It was a painting of fishing in the cold river at night. After putting it down, she opened it again. After opening the paintings one by one, they were all different. There were landscape paintings, people paintings, prosperous city paintings, and some travel paintings. Xiao Wanru's watery eyes glanced over these paintings and finally fell on a few similar paintings. These paintings were basically about mother and son. Some were about several children playing together, some were about mother and son having fun, and some were about a mother sewing new clothes for her son. All kinds of differences showed the same theme, mother and son getting along well with each other. These are almost the same. Xiao Wanru said softly as her fingers slid across the paintings of the mother and the son playing in front of her. Father feels that it is best to prepare these pictures for the Empress Dowager. Father has always wanted to find a picture that can show the harmony between His Majesty and the Empress Dowager. Not only His Majesty, but also the Empress Dowager's children. Father also hopes to be on the picture. The young madam of Marquis Chingen was actually a middle-aged person and was very astute. Seeing Xiao Wanru's fingers sliding over the painting, she understood it and explained with a smile. Everyone present knew what the reason was. Which one does Marquis Chingen find most agreeable? Xiao Wanru's eyes fell on the painting and she asked softly. Her long eyelashes fluttered a few times with a little curiosity that was very suitable for her age. Father said that every one of them was not bad, but none of them had the feeling he had imagined. The young madam of Marquis Chenggen shook her head. It's always not what he wants. I heard that father is even asking the painters in the palace to help him draw one. It's just that no matter how he chooses, he can't find a suitable one. Marquis Chenggen's madam was very helpless about Marquis Chenggen's persistence. As the young madam, she was also under great pressure. Is there no suitable one? Xiao Wanru said meaningfully, Marquis Chenggen has not found a satisfactory one until now. As she spoke, she picked up a painting at random, looked at it, put it down, and picked up another one. Her words reminded Marquis Chenggen's madam. She thought for a while and said, It's not that there is none. I just got a painting. Master Ho said that the painting is very good, but I didn't take it seriously, so I didn't look at it. I heard that it is made of maple leaves. Are there any among these paintings? As Marquis Chenggen spoke, he also came over to have a look. He didn't find the painting he was talking about, so he turned his head and gave an order to the old maid behind him. The old maid nodded and left. After a while, she came in with a box in her arms. Judging from the outside of the box, this painting was more exquisite than the previous one. Opening the box, Marquis Chenggen's madam carefully unrolled the painting. While showing it to Xiao Wanru, she said, I didn't remember about this painting before. Master Ho just mentioned it and said that if there is no more boring painting, I will give this one to the Empress Dowager in front of all the officials, so that His Majesty can also appreciate the Empress Dowager's love for her son. When the painting was unfolded, there was a vivid picture of a mother and 3 sons. One son was lying on the bed and seemed to be sick. The mother was taking care of the sick eldest son, and the other son was leaning against her side, looking at his eldest brother on the bed. The other son didn't know what was going on. He was playing happily on the side and didn't notice the scene of his mother, his eldest brother, and his second brother. It was a very warm picture. Even though Xiao Wanru was prepared, she didn't notice anything. It is made of maple leaves. This is so ingenious. And Great Elder Princess also came over and said in surprise. With maple leaves as the base, the painting was particularly suitable. There were only a few strokes in the blank space, which made the mother and son look vivid. The veins of the maple leaves also reflected the ingenious idea. This is really a good painting. Good, it is indeed good. It not only fits well, but also ingenious. It can't be bought with money. The more and Great Elder Princess looked at it, the more she liked it. A mother and 3 sons. Didn't it refer to the Empress Dowager? In the painting, the mother looked at her eldest son lovingly. The second son, who was leaning against her hand, was also very attached. As for the third son, he was ignorant and was playing on the side. It's really good. I didn't care about it before, and I haven't seen it before. Master Ho is used to doing some unconventional things. I didn't expect it to be so appropriate. It's really good. It was the first time for Marquis Chenggen's madam to see this painting. She smiled. It was rare for Marquis Chenggen to give her such face. Xiao Wanru looked at the painting carefully. It was really good. It was a wonderful idea to use maple leaves as a painting. No wonder it was regarded as the Empress Dowager's favorite and sent to the Imperial Palace. It was presented to the Empress Dowager in front of the Empress Dowager, the Emperor, the ministers, and the officials' families, and then displayed it on the spot. Imagining this picture, it was very grand and suitable to give such a decent birthday gift. Marquis Chenggen was not an aristocratic family with real power, but it was the Empress Dowager's family. If they kept giving valuable things, it would show the wealth of Marquis Chenggen's mansion too much. Only this kind of calligraphy and painting was very elegant and showed their status. He liked this kind of unique and ingenious painting even more. If he didn't know a little about it in his previous life, he wouldn't have thought of using maple leaves as the base and accompanying it with ink and brush to make the painting more outstanding. But no matter how she looked at the painting, she didn't find anything unusual or wrong with it. How could such a painting make the Empress Dowager ill and die? How could it become the source of the rebellion against Prince Zhou? Holding the painting in her hand, her long eyelashes fluttered on her face, and her eyes became more and more serene. Zhuozhuo, why are you so interested in this painting? And great elder princess couldn't help laughing when she saw Xiao Wanru looking at it over and over again as if she was reluctant to let it go. Grandma, don't make fun of me. Xiao Wanru said, reluctantly put down the painting, and said in a coquettish tone, while calmly glancing at Yu Jie, who was standing beside her. Yu Jie understood, took a step forward, and said in a low voice in surprise, "Why is it similar to the painting prepared by our princess?" She said in a very low voice as if she was talking to herself, but standing close to her, everyone could hear her clearly. "Zhuozhua, have you also prepared such a maple leaf painting?" The great elder princess asked with a smile. Xiao Wanru nodded shyly and said with a little embarrassment, "It's not as good as the one in Marquis Qingyan's mansion. I painted it myself with maple leaves." "What a coincidence. I wonder if Princess Qin can let me have a look at it?" Marquis Qingyan's madam also became interested and asked with a smile. "Of course." Xiao Wanru nodded to Yu Jie. When she came here before, she just wanted to see this maple leaf painting and then draw out her own painting from it. When she made that painting at the beginning, she also had this intention. Yu Jie turned around and went out. After a while, she took the prepared painting from the carriage and put it in a box. She came to the front of everyone, opened the box, and carefully took out the painting inside. When they saw the painting inside, and great elder princess and Marquis Qingyan's madam nodded repeatedly. The artistic conception was not fake, and the painting was very good. The most unique thing was the ingenuity, which was really hard to be compared with. Princess Qin is really clever and skillful. Marquis Qingyan's madam praised repeatedly. The painting in Marquis Qingyan's mansion was sold outside, while the one in Prince Chen's mansion was made by Princess Qin herself. The difference between the two was obvious, and it showed more sincerity to give it to the Empress Dowager. Compared with such a painting, the painting in Marquis Qingyan's mansion was inferior. It was given to the Empress Dowager for her birthday in front of the Emperor and the ministers, so it was naturally unique. Now the two paintings collided, and the one in Prince Chen's mansion was more outstanding, so Marquis Qingyan's mansion wanted to retreat. This painting was not a famous painting. Although it was very exquisite, it won in ingenuity. Now this ingenuity was not as good as that of Princess Qin, so it was better not to give this painting to her. Otherwise, it would make Marquis Qingyan's mansion lose face. It was better not to use tricks. After they collided, it would be fine if they won, but it would not be good if they lost. Princess Chen's painting is very good, and it was actually made by Princess Qin herself. The Empress Dowager will definitely like it very much. Young Madam of Marquis Qingyan's mansion also praised repeatedly. Xiao Wanru said a few polite words with a blush, and then asked Yu Jie to put away the painting. She had almost seen it. After thanking Marquis Qingyan's madam, she left. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.